Panel of the second day, Energy and Development. Mr. Pasadakis, President of the Institute of Geoenergy, could come now because he's a moderator of the panel. Let's start with the first speech of the Deputy Minister of Development, Mr. Dimas.
Χαρώ όλους τους διοργανωτές του Διεθνούς Συνεδρίου για την Ενέργεια που διεξάγεται στην Κρήτη. Το θεωρώ εξαιρετικά σημαντικό, εξαιρετικά επίκαιρο, ειδικότερα με τις εξελίξεις των τελευταίων μηνών. Άρα θεωρώ ότι είναι μια πάρα πολύ σημαντική πρωτοβουλία και συγχαρητήρια σε όλους τους διοργανωτές. Θέλω να πω ότι η έρευνα και η καινοτομία παίζουν κομβικό ρόλο στην ενεργειακή πολιτική. Όχι μόνο στην Ελλάδα, στην Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση, σε όλο τον κόσμο. Και γι' αυτό το λόγο, μάλιστα, οι περισσότερες λύσεις όσον αφορά τα ενεργειακά ζητήματα προέρχονται μετά από έρευνα επιστημόνων, από καινοτόμες τεχνολογικές λύσεις, τις οποίες ανακαλύπτουν και συνδέουν με την αγορά εργασίας σε πανεπιστήμια, σε ερευνητικά κέντρα, ακόμα και σε επιχειρήσεις. Η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση, μάλιστα, έχει πολύ σημαντικά χρηματοδοτικά εργαλεία όσον αφορά την έρευνα και την καινοτομία. Παραλαμβάνω ότι ένα πολύ μεγάλο ποσοστό, το μεγαλύτερο ποσοστό των χρημάτων, του μεγαλύτερου χρηματοδοτικού εργαλείου των προγραμμάτων ορίζοντα της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης πηγαίνουν για δράσεις αντιμετώπισης κλιματικής κρίσης, για την ενέργεια αλλά και την κυκλική οικονομία, όπως επίσης και οι στόχοι που έχει θέσει η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση για την κλιματική ουδετερότητα, για τους μηδενικούς ρήπους, είναι οι πιο φιλόδοξοι στόχοι σε όλο τον κόσμο. Άρα η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση οδηγεί τις εξελίξεις εκεί πέρα. Θέλω όμως να μοιραστώ μαζί σας κάποιες από τις πρωτοβουλίες του Υπουργείου Ανάπτυξης και Επενδύσεων, αλλά ειδικότερα των ερευνητικών κέντρων της χώρας, στο κομμάτι του περιβάλλοντος και της ενέργειας. Και ξεκινώ με κάποια από τα ερευνητικά κέντρα, ειδικότερα το Εθνικό Αστεροσκοπείο Αθηνών, το οποίο διαδραματίζει σημαντικό ρόλο στις εξελίξεις και τις ερευνητικές τάσεις στο περιβάλλον, την ενέργεια, τη μετεωρολογία, τη σεισμολογία και τη γεωδυναμική σε ευρωπαϊκό και διεθνές επίπεδο. Ξεχωρίζει όμως ένα σημαντικό έργο ευρωπαϊκού ενδιαφέροντος,
of European interest, the creation of the Scientist and Climate Change Observatory of Antikythera, the Pankea. This is an emblematic national infrastructure which is funded by the Recovery Fund with more than $20 million. The aim of Pankea is the observation of climate change in European level, as well as the region of Antikythera is considered to have the clearer atmosphere concerning pollution. The Institute of Sustainable Development, one of the three institutes of the observatory, the aim is the weather forecast with new models, with a continuous developing net in all the country, and the implementation of regions and of environmental models to study the consequences of climate change, the reporting of the pollution emissions, and the formation of a special energy policy. The Observatory of Athens also coordinates a very special action. We combine 11 academics. This is a national network with the aim, the cooperation and contribution of many agents in order to combat the climate change. So a new scientific nucleus is being created with the aim to create scientific cooperation in order to bring systems together and create systems together of warnings. And its actions are on satellite data, the creation of new knowledge concerning climate change, exploitation of drillings, EMI, the current infrastructures in Greece, HIM and IOFOS. But apart from the observatory is also Democritos, the National Center of Natural Sciences Research, one of the biggest research centers of Greece, and recently has been established. The new hydrogen station has been established in the country. This station has a production unit and storage and also consumption of hydrogen with a new modern technology which was developed from a spin-off company, Sinus. As we all know, hydrogen is one of the few available fuels with zero emissions of carbon and also provides the possibility of storage of renewable resources. And also Lefkipos, the new park, this is an organization under the auspices of the ministry and brings and helps startups who work with the environment and climate change with these subjects. The National Center for Research and Technological Development, the Cretan Thessaloniki, is one of the top research centers of Greece and the European Union. Some of the special fields where it's active, it's climate change, the green energy, the sustainability, smart development of the towns and circular economy. For example, there is its main mission is the research and development of pioneering technologies for the development of pioneering products and also academic and scientific excellency in fields such as energy and the environment. The innovation collaborative formations. It's a workshop which is active in many fields which have to do with hydrocarbons, fuels, and especially the FCC, the HDS, and the transformation of natural gas in other products, as well as the upgrade of biofuels. And this workshop also works about the pollution of the environment, also the production of fuels which are friendly to the environment, but also there is also a workshop of natural resources and alternative energy resources, which makes a research about the development and the improvement of chemical procedures and hydrogen and also the Institute of Technology is also doing a great job in order to exploit fuels and other byproducts. Also in Crete, it is very important that a research is being made. And allow me to say that a few weeks before, ITE signed a memorandum of cooperation with one of the biggest companies in matters of energy, motor oil, for a mutual cooperation, a very important step. And I think that the biggest industries in Greece recognize the importance of research centers of the country for the creation of synergies for innovative products and cooperations of the Greek community to the industry. ITE is one of the biggest research centers of the country in all Greece and focuses on new directions of a huge economic and scientific and academic interest, with matters such as energy, the environment. The Institute of Geoenergy combines the convictions of the scientists in matters of energy. Also, it is very important for the carbon dioxide and hydrogen. And the basic pillar is also the environmental research for the study of the consequences to the environment. The Athena Research Center with the special unit Sustainable Development 2A, which is directed by Ms. Vivi Koudouri, professor. They participate in the research in order to allow sustainability with the implementation of Agenda 2030. I talked about before about the Paris Agreement and the European Green Agreement, and for the provision of innovative solutions to the transition of a new digital and fair future. And it focuses on the research and innovation, economy, society, and policy making. I'd like to mention also the part of actions of ESPA. This is a very important action. In total, we have 104 projects in the field of environment and sustainable growth, with 309 participants and with a budget more than 65,000 euros and 219 participants, and also the Ministry of Energy, the Ministry of Development, the innovation clusters for the environment and the sustainable development. We have 3 proposals which are funded. Also the funding of the competency project center, in order to be able to give access to the research and the development, and also to the medium-sized companies, not only the big companies which have the possibility to have their own departments. Also in the innovation department, startups. Already in Elevate Greece, we have 44 registered startup companies, and more than 220 employees with a very important fund. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share with you some of the very important things. And this list was just indicative. There are many more activities which I cannot talk about now because I don't have the time, and the need to publish even more the important work which is being conducted in the research centers of the country is very important in the matters of energy and environment. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share all this with you, and enjoy the conference. Thank you very much, Mr. Dimas. Your presence here is very important because today's matters about energy have to do with innovation and research, and as Deputy Minister of Development and Investment, I think that we have met you in the research centers, and we know your efforts and the help that you have given us. Thank you very much. I hope that you will be available during the discussion that will follow up. And let's carry on.
Νομίζω ο Στέλιος ανέφερε, Νίκος Πασαδάκης λέγομαι, είμαι διευθυντής του Ινστιτούτου Γεωενέργειας του ΙΤΕ, μας ανέφερε ο Υπουργός πριν από λίγο, σαν ένα από τα ερευνητικά κέντρα τα οποία
one of the research centers of the country concerning the energy transition. I'd like to just take 2 minutes to say big bravo and congratulations to Stelios Vissakis and all the organizers, and especially to Stelios for the persistence and the tireless work he offers all these years. The energy conferences in Greece is an institution already, and it's in Stelios that is responsible for all this, and it is important because as a regional institute here in Chania, and especially for Crete, there is way much space in the matters of energy, and we need to use it. The next speaker is Mr. Joseph Casas Mirales with a very interesting presentation.
We are
Mr.
happy to have
Mirales.
you here with us, and the floor is yours for your presentation. And I think it's a very, very interesting topic, the economy of energy in housing policies. Please, the floor is yours.
It's like 10 minutes, okay? Or 10?
Sorry, 10 minutes, but I think we can allow a few minutes more.
Okay. So firstly, I would like to thank the organization to inviting us to speak about housing policies and decarbonization. I'll try to link these two policies, trying to demonstrate or just to explain or to share with you that both are needed. Okay, so we cannot forget.
Πριν όμως ήταν πολύ χαμηλά.
In the times we develop housing policies, we cannot forget decarbonization needs. So firstly, I would like to explain you how we manage with housing policies. We think that it's important to deal with this huge goal of giving everyone a house or a dwelling with the characteristics in the economic quality and surrounding field that achieve with their own needs. So firstly, I try to summarize housing policies in these three fields. Okay, the first one is about accessibility. It's about how, let's say, accessibility, quality, and surrounding. What means this? This means that housing policies or right to housing must achieve that houses must be accessible in economic terms, So this is in the social scope, in the social field. Then that house must have that quality that allows that families to develop their own life in those dwellings. So quality is another fact to take into account in the scope of housing policies and the right to housing. So this quality, we could say, we could speak about existing stock and new buildings. I always say that at reality, where we should have to put the focus is in the existing stock, because we have already sufficient rules and laws that makes new buildings much better in terms of energy efficiency than the existing ones. So we will need to have to focus in the existing buildings. And this all is related to the construction sector. And finally, it's about surrounding. You can have an accessible, in the economic point of view, dwelling. This dwelling can be the best dwelling in the world with the best characteristics, but if it's not placed in, if it's not located in a place with services and communications and whatever, it's like a nonsense dwelling. Okay, so these are the three main fields in which we think we must work in a coordinated way. Of course, how do we match this with the decarbonization policies? Decarbonization policies are not housing policies, but are strictly related with housing policies. Because in terms of CO2 emissions, buildings is one of the most important point of this kind of emission. So how can we work to improve it? We can work to improve it in terms of quality of the stock and the new building stock and quality of surrounding. This is our point of view. You can see in the blue line, in the blue dot line, these two big fields to work in terms of decarbonization. But we also linked it to an accessibility field in terms of energy poverty. So from the social point of view, decarbonization is also needed. It's not also needed because of quality of the building, on quality of the environment of surroundings. So even it's also needed in terms of social point of view. Let me introduce just very quickly in this previous slide and this one. In terms of accessibility and quality, we have several instruments in which we are working on. Firstly, and the most important of these instruments are the Territorial Housing Plan, Next Generation Funds, and current policies. And then, current policies, I mean, I don't know how to say it, it's like needs help to families to avoid losing their own home, okay? And some others. And on the other way, in terms of surrounding, we have specific urban improvement policies. Okay, so we work, we have like a frame of different instruments to face with these deals. So just very brief data, I'm sure you know them. Buildings account at 40% of the US UE final energy consumption. In Spain, it's about 26%. Buildings are the responsible of the 36% greenhouse gas emissions. And finally, also linked to the quality of the existing stock, it's the very low rates of building renovation. Okay? So these are three main data that we have, we must take into account in order to implement correct policies. So I just want to introduce very briefly three policies we are working on and we are implementing them. The first one is about next generation funds. As you know, European Union has helped countries with these funds in order to try to make the crisis a little bit lower. I don't know how, if it's correct to say it like this. And in terms of residential refurbishment, we have these five, well, the European funds preview different kind of programs. The first one is about neighborhood program. The second one is about rehabilitation, technical offices in terms of rehabilitation, helping rehabilitation, building programs, there's another one, dwelling programs, and the projects. So these are 5 programs, mainly focused in the reduction of energy demand and the reduction of consumption. Both must go together. Okay? This is the amount of money that it's supposed to be received by the Catalan government in order to refurbish 65,000 dwellings with energy efficiency criteria, in order also to finance projects and to finance the technical offices and management of all these projects, okay? Finally, these 75,000 dwellings to be refurbished with energy efficiency criteria, we will develop them in the neighborhood program, 25%, in the building program, it is 35%, and in dwelling program, it is 40%. This is a kind of scale criteria. In the biggest scale is the neighborhood scale, then there's the building scale, and then there is the own dwelling scale. So, trying to make people to be able to get these funds, okay? Even if maybe your neighborhoods in the building are do not agree to ask for these funds, individual families could do it. Okay, this was the first one. Then the second one is about the territorial housing plan. It's the territorial housing plan. It's the main planning and programming instrument in terms of housing policies for the next 20 years. What does it mean? It means that this is the instrument that determines, that defines what is expected to be needed to develop during these next 20 years, okay? You could say, okay, maybe this is not in terms of energy efficiency, not strictly, but yes, in the social scope, and also in terms of decarbonization, because the different actions we are going to develop will be necessary will be done necessary according to the energy efficiency criteria. So we have divided all the Catalan territory in different areas. These different areas are linked to different needs in terms of housing policies. Okay, we have, as you see here in the middle coast area, it's the high demand housing areas, the most house demand areas located in this zone, which is the regional metropolitan area of Barcelona and also other municipalities, where is the real strong demand in social housing. And we have preview other kind of policies all around the country, depending on what's the characteristics of each municipalities, okay? But in huge numbers, we will need 300,000 dwellings to achieve that the 15% of the stock of the households will be destinated to the social sector, okay? In those municipalities included in these high demand areas, okay? So this is the first objective. And then the second one is about the social rental sector. We will need in all Catalonia, in all the territory of Catalonia, 200,000 dwellings for the next 20 years. So these are two objectives, this one and this one. This is not plus the other. These are two objectives that coexist in certain parts of the territory, okay? In any case, we will need to develop a huge amount of housing, of dwellings destinated on social housing with sure energy efficiency criteria. This is a big opportunity for that. And finally, I just briefly, very briefly, because I'm 2 minutes late, sorry, it's about urban improvement policies. Okay, we've developed last 15 years what Llei de Barris is called in Catalan. It's neighborhood law or district law. It's about a way of action in the urban scale, but not in the city scale, but in the neighborhood scale, okay? In terms of, this is a map with with few data of these policies. The law of districts try to improve quality of life in neighborhoods by the introduction of projects in these 8 fields. To improve quality of life in neighborhoods, it's not only about building, it's not only about public equipment, it's not only about accessibility, it's not only about gender equity, but it's about everything, okay? So, these 8 fields of action is in which the law of districts is based on. And as you can see in the dot line market, the sustainable urban development is also included in this action plan of the law of districts, okay? We must take into account that this is a law of developed or approved in the year 2004, so much before than the objectives of sustainable development, you know, but this was already included there. So these are just a few of the interventions we've done through all these municipalities or all these neighborhoods that we have founded these projects, and some biomass boiler installation, some images that briefly explain it. Okay? Solar panels, walkways. So one could say, oh, walkways? What does walkways? Does walkways have or has any link to decarbonization policies, to energy efficiency policies? Yes, of course. If people goes walking, does not take the car. So, thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morales. Indeed, it was a very interesting presentation, and I think here in Greece we have also significant housing problems, and maybe your experience is valuable. I'm not a specialist, but I realize that everything should be done for the well-being of people, and you have done a lot there. So thank you very much. Ωραία. Τώρα είναι χαρά μου να καλωσορίσω
Now it's my
τον
pleasure
κύριο
to welcome
Ευθύμιο
Mr.
Ταρτάρα.
Ευθύμιος Ταρτάρας.
Τον επόμενο ομιλητή, ο κύριος Ταρτάρας είναι διευθυντής γεωεπιστήμης και σύμβουλος διοίκησης στην ελληνική διαχειριστική εταιρεία
Management Company of Hydrocarbons, a very important company in managing energy matters in Greece, and he shows he's especially active in the last years. It's our pleasure that you are with us, Mr. Tartaras. You have the floor. I'm not sure he's hearing me. He doesn't have any expression. He shouldn't be listening to me, I think.
Ωραία. Καλημέρα, συγγνώμη. Ένα τεχνικό πρόβλημα με το unmute.
I'm sorry, there was a technical problem with mute and mute.
Καταρχήν ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ τον αγαπητό Νίκο για την εισαγωγή.
My dear Nikos, for the introduction.
Και φυσικά
and of course Mr. Vizakis, the organizer of this company, for this very nice conference and for the invitation to me. And I hope that next year that we'll be able to come in person as last year.
So I will present the rest of my talk in English. This way it will be understandable for all the members of the panel. Let me share my presentation. Can you please let me if you can see it okay? If I need to make it maybe presentation mode.
Yeah, okay, it's fine.
Is this okay now?
Yeah, we can see your slides.
Okay, thank you. So what I would like to present today is a roadmap to energy independency and transition for Greece. As we see it at HHRM, the Hellenic Hydrocarbon Resources Management, which is the state company that manages the Hellenic Republic's rights for hydrocarbon exploration and production, but also for underground storage of CO2, natural gas, and other potential gases and liquids in the future. So the first slide that I'm presenting is something that we have been talking about at HHRM for almost a year now, is the fact that in this fight, we are all fighting against climate change, which is not only a national, but of course a global challenge. Our concerns about energy actually can be summarized with an energy trilemma. So of course, we are striving for environmental sustainability. So we all want to go towards a cleaner future, a carbon neutral and carbon free, let's say in the future, system. However, we should not forget the two other pillars of this energy trilemma, which is energy security on one hand, so having enough energy supply at a national but also at a regional level, And of course, energy equity, which is very, very important, and we should not forget about this. It means about the ability of all social classes to have access to affordable energy. Unfortunately, as we are experiencing now with the current energy crisis, we have problems in these two domains: energy security and energy equity, and we're all feeling the effects. So let's see if we can draw some lessons from this energy crisis. I agree it is a bit early, probably, so nothing definitive yet, but I think we can start drawing some conclusions already. The first one is that this energy crisis is not short-term. I think we're in for a prolonged crisis, or maybe to put it better, I would say a series of crises in plural. What is also evident is that there is very little tolerance to supply and demand gaps. Our economy is heavily hit in cases where there's not enough supply compared to the demand, and actually even I would say our societies are not used to this. There would be big reactions, I would imagine, if there were suddenly electricity cuts like in years past, several decades past. I remember when I was a young kid. The other thing is that we can see that there is a security threat when basically there is not enough energy supply. And in this case, we need to take short-term actions in order to diversify our energy supply sources. And of course, the holy grail for every country or every region or block of countries would be the energy independence, which admittedly is hard to be achieved at 100%, but we should strive towards a large degree of energy independence. And this can only be achieved through the development of all the domestic resources. And finally, I think that we should all agree that there's no dilemma about, there's no competition between the different resources. We need everything. We need all hands on deck. We don't have the luxury, basically, of choosing one and leaving the other on the side. We need to find the best energy mix at every particular time, which can be different for different countries based on what resources are available and what needs every country has. So, is everything bad? We say that we have the energy crisis. Well, no. Every crisis, of course, presents an opportunity. And I think Greece in particular is very well placed to take advantage of this opportunity because it has several advantages. And we just need to put together, to connect the pieces. So first of all, Greece has a great geographical advantage. It's located at the crossroads of Middle East, North Africa, and Europe, between resource-rich countries in the East Med and the markets of Europe. Moreover, it has great energy resources. First of all, it has a huge renewable sources potential. I mean, both in solar and wind, I think we are blessed with abundant resources in these domains, and I think we're doing great strides towards realizing this potential. At the same time, we have significant potential natural gas resources that largely remain untapped, since we have only basically one field in Greece that produces oil and gas for the last 40 years. And of course, we have significant infrastructure in place, something that maybe isn't very often forgotten, let's say. We have a very, very strong infrastructure in terms of energy projects, of power stations, pipelines, and so forth. This means that a lot of energy projects can get up and running pretty quickly with relatively low cost. And this infrastructure is actually being enriched even as we speak. There are several ongoing projects. And finally, of course, the market drivers are there. So there's a huge market demand, both domestically in our region, in the Balkans, in the Southeastern Europe, but also in the wider European region for absorbing this energy. And we have strong political support and several energy investments that are waiting to be done. So I think this paints a pretty positive picture. And in order to give you a little bit more detail on that, I would like to show this map of Greece. First of all, as you see in the lower right-hand side of the map, we see Greece at the crossroads, basically, between, as I said, Middle East, North Africa, and Europe, essentially an energy corridor in several ways, more than one ways, with pipelines for gas, with pipelines with cables for connecting electricity between the different regions and so forth. And very importantly, I want to focus on all the infrastructure that we have already available or under construction in our country. We have a very extensive natural gas network, domestic network from DESFA. We have several international pipelines that are either already existing or under construction. So we have TAP that crosses northern Greece and then through Albania connects to Italy and then the rest of Europe. We have projects like the IGI Poseidon that would also connect Greece with Europe through Italy. We have IGB that is 96% complete and soon will be operational that connects Greece to Bulgaria and sends basically gas to Bulgaria. And of course, we have EastMed, the large project that would connect the gas resources of the EastMed, of Cyprus, Israel, and so forth, through Crete, Greece, the rest of Greece, basically, and then to Italy and the rest of Europe. And of course, we have several gas-fired power plants, either already operating or soon to be operational, under construction now. We have oil refineries. We have, of course, the FSRU unit in Alexandroupoli, very, very important in the current situation. We have the LNG terminal in Revithousa. We have a UGS facility, underground gas storage facility, that is under tendering right now in South Kavala. And of course, the first CCS project that is under planning in the soon to be depleted oil field in Prinos, in Kavala. And of course, we have other FSRU projects that are currently under planning. And in addition to that, we have very strong local supply chain that we should not forget about. We have shipyards, we have cable manufacturers, we have steel manufacturers, and so forth. Very, very important supply chain. So I think the country is in a very good position to take advantage of this window of opportunity. So then I would like to focus a little bit more on the idea is that our country could actually become from a transportation energy hub to a net energy exporter in the future, and this is our hope and vision. So now we'd like to go a little bit more in detail about the potential we have in natural gas deposits, which is the area that we are most focusing on. And here I'm just showing basically the Ionian and Crete basins in the general framework of the East Mediterranean region. And what is obvious to even someone who is not a geologist is that basically this red area that represents the Ionian Crete basins is surrounded by a lot of other basins, either in the Adriatic or in the East Med, in Egypt, in Libya, and so forth, that have been producing, that are prolific traditional producers of oil and gas. And the only one where we don't have currently this production is in Greece, in the Ionian Crete basins. This is a very thick sedimentary basin. It ranges from shallow to ultra deep water. The problem is that it's largely underexplored. So the near shore is underexplored, and further offshore in the really deep waters is practically, let's say, unexplored. We have a sparse 2D seismic coverage from 2012. We have 3 wildcat wells with oil and gas shows, and 5 more further near shore. And we have 1 gas and oil discovery nearby in the Katakolo field. So I would say that this is a basin with a huge potential, but largely underexplored, which is on one hand is bad. On the other hand, it means that there is still a lot of opportunity. It's one of the untapped potential resources in Europe. So we're already making some significant steps towards changing this, towards having more exploration done in this area. So the first offshore seismic surveys since 2016 were completed successfully in the first quarter of 2022. And very importantly, with the highest environmental and safety standards. And for this, we would like to really thank LP, Ελληνικά Πετρέλαια, who are the block licensees in these 2 blocks, in Block 10 and Ionian Block, which actually really contributed in making this surveys a success. And they set, I would say, new environmental standards for all the Southeastern Europe region. I won't go in the detail of listing everything just outlining a few of them, basically we had doubled the number of marine mammal observers. We had doubled the radius of the safety zone, up to 1.5 kilometers around the ship. We had a soft start protocol every time there was basically a sighting of a mammal or sea mammal in the region. We had passive acoustic monitoring before, during, and after the survey, and so forth. A very large exclusion zone, 1 kilometer exclusion zone around the Natura areas, and so forth. So we are very happy, and actually we want this to be the standard in the future, and we want Greece to be really the leader in this domain in this part of the world. And not only, I would say, I think these standards are above and beyond what is done even in parts of Northwestern Europe. So what we're trying to do is to accelerate Greece's upstream gas sector, which is a national priority. Actually, Greece is aiming to become a natural gas producer within the decade. As was actually mentioned by the General Secretary of Energy and Mineral Resources yesterday, Mrs. Luku, there's a clear and full political support for this by the Prime Minister himself, Mr. Mitsotakis, who visited our offices and was very clear about his will for these projects to proceed fast. For this reason, there is a task force that was set up by the ministry, and its mandate is to oversee the swift progress in these projects and avoid any unnecessary delays that could happen in the permitting processes, for example, or other procedures. Currently, we have 8 active concessions. We have 2 blocks in the exploitation phase. One, as I mentioned, is Prinos in the north of the country, which has been producing for almost 40 years now. The other one is Katakolo, a small oil and gas field near Western Peloponnese, just offshore. And then we have 6 blocks in exploration stage, 3 offshore blocks in the Ionian Sea, 1 onshore block in the Ioannina region in northwestern Greece, and last but not least, 2 blocks offshore western and southwestern Crete, which actually have potentially the largest targets. And we are very excited about the potential of these blocks. In terms of value, I mean, based on some conservative estimates, we could talk about a value of upwards of 250 billion euros. And anyways, this is our estimates, and I would say they're conservative given the current prices. So what is the roadmap for monetizing actually these domestic natural gas deposits? First of all, we are committed to having the first phase of the seismic surveys completed within the next 2 years. This is very important in order to map all the potential targets. And then we want to ensure the completion of the exploratory drilling within 3 to 4 years. And finally, start production from the hopefully discovered deposits within 6 to 7 years. So basically, by the end of the decade, as we said. And finishing, essentially, I'm going back to the original message. I really think we have a strong window of opportunity. We have all the elements in place. We have national untapped gas resources, significant local demand infrastructure, but also significant demand in nearby markets. A lot of investments happening right now in the country in the energy sector. And we are in a very important vertical energy corridor through the Balkans to the rest of Europe, from the Middle East all the way to Central Europe. And something that actually shows the importance of the potential domestic natural gas deposits that we have is the recent MOU that was signed between Egypt, Israel, and the EU. It demonstrates how important it is to have access to energy resources through friendly partners. And I think Greece, being in the EU and having potentially some of the last untapped gas resources in Europe, I think it definitely fits this bill. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tartaras. You confirmed what we said, that EDI is very active in the last years in the energy map of Greece, and despite the difficulties, really tries to put Greece in the wider energy map of the Eastern Europe and the Balkans, and we hope that you will stay with us. And for the discussion that will follow, it will be a pleasure that you stay with us. If you hear me, please confirm that you will stay.
Ακολουθώντας τους τύπους,
So, following
είμαι ο
the
επόμενος ομιλητής. Σας
next
ευχαριστώ
speaker, I
και
am
για τον
the
χρόνο που
next
θα μου
speaker.
αφιερώσετε
Thank you for
τα
the
επόμενα 10
time
λεπτά, ίσως λίγο παραπάνω.
I will have the next 10 minutes, maybe a little more.
Καλημέρα σας.
Good morning.
Θα χρησιμοποιήσω τον χρόνο μου
I'll use my
για δύο
time
θέματα.
for two
Το
topics.
ένα είναι η
The
διαδρομή
first
του
one
Ινστιτούτου μας, του
is the
Ινστιτούτου
path of our
Γεωενέργειας
Institute of
του ΙΤΕ,
Geoenergy,
γιατί αυτή η διαδρομή νομίζω
because
ότι
this path, I think, that shows the energy matters and the impasses our country has. And the second part will be a short discussion about the energy transition with concerning the real sustainability of the planet. And I use written text in order to avoid any misunderstandings. And I say this because in the energy discussion in the last years, there have been some dogmas formed, which I would say that have also theological approach, and sometimes counter-arguments are not present. We, as Institute of Geoenergy, were created 3 years ago, 2019, as an institution of oil research, of the Institute of Research and Energy. And it was our a wish of the state to create such a research center about hydrocarbons in the country, which was not present up to now. And the conclusions are here. It was the time that Greece, with a delay but also a lot of hope, was trying to catch up with research developments about hydrocarbons in Eastern Europe. Unfortunately, our institution did not find the real support from the state, which would sound logical, would not be so logical for such an important topic. The next stage, after the creation of our institution, some things changed in the energy sector. Europe and Greece, with the Green Deal, were oriented monolateral, even though even the banking finance of the companies active in the natural gas was impossible, and natural gas was recognized as the fuel of the energy transition. In our country, these delays in the development of the hydrocarbons and the ambiguity of the politicians and some actions of abrupt implementation made blurry the landscape of the businesses in these fuels. And at the same time, the assisted from banks, the bank-assisted companies and wind parks had a real development, but due to the problems they had about storage and the absence of strategic infrastructure and nets, they couldn't keep a sustainable energy system. And at the same time, in Europe, but especially in our country, the procedure of financial support was completed, and this decreased or even extinguished the differences in the energy prices. And the old-fashioned contracts of fixed prices were replaced by the favor of the everyday changes. And these proved to be beneficial for companies but not for the society. The landscape of high prices to the final consumer, the energy poverty which started 2020 had today some dystopic characteristics today, even especially after the geopolitical crisis in Ukraine. In this context, our institute tried to watch and affect the developments and to directions that are correct for us. And we changed to an Institute of Geoenergy, and we created 3 directions: fossil fuels and carbon management, green energy, and 3rd direction, environment and circular economy. In this context, a real important investment is included, the ITE in Chania, for the creation of a Center of Sustainable Energy Transition, and a project of about 10 million euros funded by the Recovery Fund, the European Bank, and we hope that it will operate in a few years in Chania, in 2.5 years from today. And as I told you, our institute and the business landscape of energy in the last year is being determined by the administrative decisions, which we think that they do not correspond correctly. And normally, today we should have presented data and solutions as an institute. However, I assure you that we do this work and applied research, but today in this conference I'd like to share with you some thoughts for the general topic of today's energy system, decisions that form the landscape and not other solutions that are not feasible. The first I'd like to mention is a way of production of energy and the sustainability of the planet, and the second in the reasons of how the energy transition is being made and the position of renewable resources. Let's start with the first one, energy and sustainability. Today, there's an opinion that the sustainability of the planet, which is recognized as a problematic one, could be assured with only changing the way of production of energy, following a path of energy transition. We describe the different models of energy of the Green Deal. And electrification of energy is the nucleus, is a central part, and the use of wind parks, wind energy and solar energy, and with the technologies of storage and transformation. These models, especially in the eyes of the people, are logical, and also the majority of the scientific community also agrees, and especially because of the targeted funding. Also, it's true that the problem of sustainability of the planet has developed not today by the science, but a few decades before, because it has not been connected from the science to the energy sector. Obviously, we cannot exhaust the topic. I'd like to mention some things only, which are undoubtable. Today, Earth's population is eight times bigger than the prehistoric period, and now we have a huge problem with energy production. Also, the surface of the planet has changed, especially due to agriculture, in order to support the real survival needs of the humans, and also the needs, especially today, and especially in the rich regions of the country, which are determined by factors which have not to do with the survival and the production of and the sustainability of the humankind. Also, chemicals which cannot be assimilated by the systems and accelerate the problem. Also, humans today are the 36% of all the mammals in the planet, and the rest 60% is the animals we breed for food, and 4% is for nature, wild nature. And at the beginning of the humankind, the percentages were 1% and 99%. Obviously, 99% was the wild nature. And since 1940s, 90% of the fossil fuels has been consumed generally, and this produced carbon dioxide pollutions much more than that photosynthesis took place, because photosynthesis is decreased due to the destruction of forests and the continuous desertification. And in all this, we see that humankind has overcome the sustainability limit of the planet and we need to combat this. And this image, today's image, looks like very problematic, that huge human systems collapse, and by using the same or even improved technological instruments and tools, but also the strong and to keep the profit and the status quo. Today, there is no living space for today's development models of societies. It's not only useless, it's also dangerous. And I think it's sad that all these are scientifically documented, and this is obvious that we see models that copy old approaches with a phenomenal. Such a model is the energy transition model, the main model. It is. We see that there is a climate change is connected only with the use of fossil fuels. Also, we see some simple things. If fossil fuels, if the consumption of fossil fuels is reduced, then carbon dioxide emissions will be reduced, temperature will be reduced, and climate change will be avoided, and climate crisis as well. So I wonder if also all these things will decrease the weather, extreme weather conditions. Are these connected with the climate change? Will this be over? If we wait that this is over with the floods, and if we expect that all these fires will be over, will be disappeared, then I think we will be disappointed. In closing, the model energy transition as is today suggests to overcome the crisis with the same tools that they created the energy, which means more technology, more resources, rare metals, and very important cultivating land, which is disappeared, even better development, and also the preservation of all the pathogenies of the system, the overconsumption, inequality of distribution, unequal distribution of resources. But who and why chooses to impose this model? Very soon, the development of the renewable resources and the social cost, which can be explained that this is a very important chance for investment, supported by sponsors of many agents, regional agents, and also business risk is minimized, but this business risk is a supposed strong asset of the financial capital. This image, in my opinion, has many common elements with the development of the banking loans in the USA before 2008, and maybe we'll see something similar. And the current implementation of all these policies, we see that the environmental worries recently are now secondary, have become secondary, because geopolitical issues are now more important. So, and you understand what I mean. And how easy we can replace the Russian natural gas with liquefied gas, and due to the way of its production and the transportation, also the reintroduction of carbon in the electricity production does not go together with the model of the decrease of fossil fuels. Also, it is questionable how we see that the EU is not ready to develop own resources of fossil fuels. This is not only for the whole Europe, but for Greece, unfortunately, it's true. What I've told you, it makes us uncomfortable and we worry, but we do not see our role. We seek the scientific truth as research institutes behind the phenomena for the best solutions for the society. Obviously, we do not We do not. We do accept I do accept resourceable, renewable energies, but it should be in accordance with the natural limits of the planet and also promote the development of humans and the society. Sorry for exceeding my time. Thank you very much. Very nice. The next speaker, as I'm being informed, is not in the room yet. There was a delay with his plane.
Discussion, and maybe we could start. Of course, we can accept questions from the audience. I would like to start with Mr. Miralles, since. Okay, I see we have. Yeah. We have in the panel also, we have Mr. Tassoulas Fokion. Is that correct? Okay. Okay. So, I would like to start with Mr. Miralles with a question that I got from the audience. If you could, Mr. Miralles, based on your experience, to explain us, to show us or to describe us good practices in the collaboration between governmental bodies, private companies in the sector of housing, in what you described as the decarbonization. What kind of practices do you use in order to prepare all that system? Sorry.
Well, I could explain about the past, but I think the important is to talk about the present and the future in terms of what we will need for the next 20 years in terms of housing policies, at least in Catalonia. It means a great opportunity to change the model, and the historical model was based in a kind of self-made products. I'll try to explain. The public sector was doing their best, or our best, and the private sector was trying to do also their best, okay? But in some sense, in different ways, okay? There were only a few engagement from the private sector with the public objectives, okay? Because it was not economically attractive and whatever. But from now to the next 20 years, we have a diagnosis, which is the territorial housing plan. We know what it's supposed to be needed for the next years. We know which kind of instruments we will need to develop to face with this deal. So the private sector, the public sector will need the private one to engage to these objectives, okay? Because it's a very huge objective. I told before about 1,000 dwellings. It's not about construction of all of these dwellings, but a huge amount will need to be constructed. But we will have to buy some others, we will have to refurbish some others, and we cannot do it, the public sector, by ourselves only. So we will need the engagement of the private sector, and trying to find ways make it possible, adding the efforts of both of them.
Yeah, it's always a difficult problem to make private and public sector to collaborate in a mutual interest.
But it depends on the clarity of how, if we have very clear where do we want to arrive, and if we have so clear also which is going the public expenditure in these goals, then the private sector will be more sure to engage to these projects or not to engage. But at the end, all around Europe, there are huge companies dedicated to social sector. They have a quite limited benefits, but they have benefits. And many funds are based on this kind of companies. So it's a very secure investment for the private sector.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mirales. Δεν ξέρω αν έχουμε τον κύριο Ταρτάρα μαζί μας. Μήπως
ναι, είμαι εδώ.
Ωραία. Εγώ θα είχα μία ερώτηση για τον κύριο Ταρτάρα. Αν θα μπορούσατε, κύριε Ταρτάρα, να μας πείτε, βλέποντας και επενώντας τις πραγματικά σημαντικές προσπάθειές σας, ποια είναι τα βασικά εμπόδια σήμερα στο να μπει μπροστά η βιομηχανία πετρελαίου και φυσικού αερίου στην Ελλάδα, ενώ από άποψη έρευνας και παραγωγής?
Ναι, στα ελληνικά ή στα αγγλικά, πώς είναι καλύτερο?
Όπως θέλετε.
Για μένα είναι το ίδιο. Για τους υπόλοιπους. Ωραία, ας πούμε στα ελληνικά τότε, μια και είναι για την Ελλάδα συγκεκριμένα. Αυτή τη στιγμή, νομίζω ότι εμείς στην ΕΔΕΗ προσωπικά είμαστε πολύ, πολύ αισιόδοξοι ότι πραγματικά έχουμε μπροστά μας μια πολύ μεγάλη ευκαιρία να προχωρήσουμε με γοργά βήματα στην πραγματοποίηση των ερευνών. Δεν νομίζω ότι είναι η στιγμή να συζητήσουμε τι έγινε ή δεν έγινε στο παρελθόν, με διάφορες αγκυλώσεις, καθυστερήσεις κτλ. Το θέμα είναι ότι αυτή τη στιγμή πραγματικά το πρόγραμμα ερευνών προχωράει. Όπως έδειξα, ας πούμε, στο Ιόνιο έχουν γίνει ήδη έρευνες. Τον επόμενο χρόνο σχεδιάζεται η πρώτη ερευνητική γεώτρηση στην περιοχή των Ιωαννίνων. Προχωράνε οι έρευνες και στα άλλα μπλοκ, όπως θα δείτε αυτό το χειμώνα. Θα έχουμε πάλι σεισμικές έρευνες κτλ. Επίσης, αυτή η ειδική ομάδα, το Task Force, που έχει ήδη ξεκινήσει την εργασία της, που έχει οργανωθεί από το Υπουργείο Περιβάλλοντος και Ενέργειας, θα βοηθήσει πάρα πολύ, ώστε άμεσα οποιαδήποτε προβλήματα παρουσιάζονται να λύνονται και να επιλύνονται και να αποφευχθούν όποιες καθυστερήσεις μπορούν να υπάρξουν. Νομίζω ότι πραγματικά αποτελεί μια μεγάλη ευκαιρία και εμείς στην ΕΔΕΗ είμαστε 100% αποφασισμένοι να δουλέψουμε πάνω σε αυτό και να το προχωρήσουμε όσο περισσότερο γίνεται. Και φυσικά να κάνουμε αυτό που υποσχεθήκαμε και στον ίδιο τον Πρωθυπουργό, αυτό που ζήτησε.
Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ, κύριε Ταρτάρα. Εάν έχουμε ενδεχομένως 5 λεπτά, εάν υπάρχει κάποια ερώτηση από το ακροατήριο, και θα ακολουθήσει η τελευταία παρουσίαση από τον κύριο Γιώργο Ψηρή, διευθυντή της Grid Telecom. Εάν υπάρχει κάποια ερώτηση από το ακροατήριο, μπορούμε τώρα, διαφορετικά θα προχωρήσουμε στην τελευταία τοποθέτηση, στην τελευταία παρουσίαση αυτού του session. Δεν υπάρχει κάτι. Αν είναι δυνατόν τότε να βάλουμε τον κύριο Ψηρή. Δεν έχω τίτλο ομιλίας. Κύριε Ψηρή, σας καλωσορίζουμε. Το βήμα είναι δικό σας. Δεν σας ακούμε ή
Με ακούτε?
Ναι, τώρα ναι.
Δεν ξέρω τι βλέπετε. Βλέπετε την παρουσίαση μου?
Ναι, βλέπουμε την παρουσίασή σας.
Δεν τη βλέπω εγώ όμως. Λοιπόν,
τώρα βλέπουμε
καλημέρα και από μένα.
σε full screen. Μια χαρά.
Δεν ξέρω αν ακούγομαι καλά, γιατί είμαι σε χώρο που έχει λίγο βασαρία. Ελπίζω να τα καταφέρω.
Προς το παρόν είναι καλά. Συνεχίστε παρακαλώ.
Εντάξει, μια χαρά. Λοιπόν, εγώ δεν είμαι από τον ενεργειακό χώρο, είμαι από τον τηλεπικοινωνιακό. Είμαστε θυγατρικοί του ΑΔΜΙΕ. Εδώ και 3 χρόνια, 3,5 χρόνια υπάρχει η Cretan Telecom. Και ουσιαστικά η εταιρεία μας είναι το όχημα του ΑΔΜΙΕ για την παροχή τηλεπικοινωνιακών υπηρεσιών σε παρόχους, τηλεπικοινωνιακούς παρόχους και μεγάλες επιχειρήσεις. Ουσιαστικά εκμεταλλευόμαστε το δίκτυο οπτικών ινών του ΑΔΜΙΕ, το οποίο είναι ανά την Ελλάδα, που συνοδεύει το ηλεκτρικό δίκτυο τόσο στην υπηρετική χώρα, όσο και τώρα τελευταία και στα νησιά. Με πρώτη και καλύτερη την Κρήτη, που έχουν πέσει ήδη ηλεκτρικά καλώδια και οπτικές ίνες και παρουσιάζει πολύ μεγάλο εξαιρετικό ενδιαφέρον το νησί, προκειμένου να γίνει ο επόμενος μεγάλος κόμβος, τόσο ενεργειακός όσο και τηλεπικοινωνιακός, στη Μεσόγειο. Ας μην μιλήσουμε για γεωπολιτική και γεωστρατηγική, τα γνωρίζουν οι κριτικοί καλύτερα. Είναι γνωστό πόσο σημαντική είναι η θέση της Κρήτης γενικώς μέσα στη Μεσόγειο, αλλά τα τελευταία χρόνια έχει γίνει και τόσο στην Ελλάδα όσο και ειδικά στην Κρήτη, που είναι σε πολύ το σημείο της Κρήτης μέσα στη Μεσόγειο για τις τηλεπικοινωνίες είναι πάρα πολύ σημαντικό, γιατί ουσιαστικά είναι το δεύτερο νησί που συναντάει κάποια Κίνα που διέρχεται από το Σουέζ και κατευθύνεται προς την Ευρώπη. Είμαστε πολύ κοντά δηλαδή στο διάβλο αυτό του Σουέζ, που έρχονται όλες οι οπτικές ίνες από την Αφρική και από την Ασία, προκειμένου να πάνε στη Δυτική Ευρώπη, και είμαστε ένας πολύ καλός δρόμος εναλλακτικός, προκειμένου οι ίνες αυτές να περάσουν, να διασχίσουν την Ελλάδα, ξεκινώντας από την Κρήτη. Έχουμε πρόσφατα βαφτίσει και τα καλώδια, τα οπτικά που συνδέουν την υπηρετική Ελλάδα με την Κρήτη. Είναι 4 καλωδιακά συστήματα. Τα βαφτίσαμε Minoas East-West και Apollo East-West, που έρχονται από την Πελοπόννησο και από την Αιττική και πάνε στα Χανιά και στο Ηράκλειο, με 4 αναλλακτικούς δρόμους, το οποίο σημαίνει ότι 96 ζευγάρια οπτικών ινών, πολύ περισσότερα από οποιαδήποτε άλλα καλώδια μέχρι στιγμής έχουν όλοι οι άλλοι πάροχοι τηλεπικοινωνιών, θα συνδέσουν συνδέουν ήδη την υπηρετική Ελλάδα με την Κρήτη. Έτσι μπορεί η Κρήτη γενικότερα να αναβαθμιστεί και να μπορέσει να επικοινωνήσει πολύ καλύτερα με τα κέντρα που βρίσκονται στην Αθήνα και να προσελκύσουμε καλώδια που διέρχονται από τη Μεσόγειο προκειμένου να ανέβουν προς την Ευρώπη. Αυτά είναι τα 2 καλώδια που βλέπετε στο χάρτη, το Minoas και το Apollo, West και East. Είναι 4 συστήματα από το κάτω άκρο της Πελοποννήσου στα Χανιά και από τα Μέγαρα κοντά στη Δαμάστα, στην περιοχή της Δαμάστας. Αυτά, το πρώτο είναι ήδη σε λειτουργία, το δεύτερο έχει πέσει και βρίσκεται πολύ κοντά στην ακτή της Κορακιάς. Μέχρι το Σεπτέμβρη θα έχει βγει στην ακτή. Εμείς λοιπόν τι κάνουμε τώρα? Για να προσελκύσουμε αυτά τα καλώδια τα διεθνή, σκοπεύουμε να αναπτύξουμε ένα καλωδιακό σταθμό, ενδεικτική είναι η φωτογραφία που βλέπετε δίπλα, κάπου στα νότια της Κρήτης, προκειμένου καλώδια τα οποία διέρχονται από τη Μεσόγειο, που μέχρι πρόσφατα μας προσπέρναγαν την Ελλάδα, ενώ περνάγανε ακριβώς δίπλα από την Κρήτη, σε μερικά μίλια από την νότια της Κρήτης, συνέχισαν τον δρόμο τους προς τα κέντρα της Ευρώπης, που ουσιαστικά η μεγάλη κόμβη είναι η Μασσαλία και κάποιοι μικρότεροι στην Ισπανία και στην Ιταλία. Φιλοδοξούμε να γίνουμε το hub που να μας προτιμούν όλα τα καλώδια και η πρώτη χώρα ευρωπαϊκή που θα μπαίνουν, εκτός από την Κύπρο βέβαια, η οποία είναι τοπική η κίνησή της, και έτσι ώστε να ανεβαίνουν προς την Ευρώπη, στα Βαλκάνια, στην Ιταλία, να είναι η Κρήτη. Ο καλωδιακός αυτός λοιπόν σταθμός θα λειτουργεί σαν ένα κέντρο υποδοχής διεθνών υποθαλάσσιων καλωδίων, που θα μπορεί μέσω αυτού του σταθμού να συνδέεται η Αφρική και η Ασία μέσω της Ελλάδας με την Ευρώπη. Σήμερα υπάρχουν data centers στην Κρήτη. Δεν είναι ανοιχτά data center που θα μπορεί οποιοδήποτε καλώδιο να έρθει και να προφαλασσώσει ένα καλώδιο μέσα σε αυτό. Αυτό θα είναι ο πρώτος καλωδιακός σταθμός που είναι neutral, είναι ουδέτερος καλωδιακός σταθμός. Εμείς μέσω αυτού του καλωδίου μέσω αυτού του σταθμού εκμεταλλευόμαστε τα καλώδια που θα ανοίξουμε στην Κρήτη, τα χερσαία και τα υποθαλάσσια που σας έδειξα πριν, και όλο το οπτικό δίκτυο του ΑΔΜΙΕ θα μπορέσουμε να φέρουμε οπτικές σύνες και υπηρεσίες τηλεπικοινωνιακές χωρητικότητας στα μεγάλα data center της Αθήνας, και αν κάποιος επιθυμεί θα μπορούσε μέσω άλλων καλωδίων που δημιουργούνται σήμερα να βγει προς την Ιταλία ή προς τη Σόφια, στα Βαλκάνια, που προκειμένου να φτάσουν στα μεγάλα κέντρα τηλεπικοινωνιακά της Ευρώπης, που είναι στη Φραγκφούρτη, το Παρίσι και το Λονδίνο και το Άμστερνταμ. Σήμερα στην Κρήτη υπάρχουν
Today in Crete,
δύο data center, τα οποία είναι το ένα της
there are two centers.
Telecom Italia και το άλλο είναι του ΟΤΕ, της Οδεγκλό, και υπάρχει και το GRNet, το γνωστό ΣΕΝΑ. Πολύ πρόσφατα,
Very recently, some centers have been announced. This is very important for Crete. Data centers of Crete will be multiplied, which means more employment positions, know-how, and technological upgrade. Already there have been announced 4 cables which come to Crete and land in Crete. The first one is from Telephone Italia, and the Medusa and India-Europe Express have said that they will arrive in the southern part of Crete. Also, there are some other very big cables, such as to Africa, Africa 1. I will not mention everyone. And these 50%, this is a cable which goes throughout Africa and arrives below Crete. It has not yet been announced that it will arrive in Africa, but it's a very big issue, and we'll try everything in order to convince these companies and all the cables that pass through Crete to Mediterranean, we'll try it so they land in Crete. And generally, we will upgrade the technological infrastructure, and Crete will become in transit for data transfer. We have co-signed with companies in Durion. In 2 years, they will bring a cable to Crete, the Trans-Europe Asian system. This is a very big investment, of American interest, but also we have also signed a contract with Telecom in order for cable systems that pass through the Mediterranean. And as you see, it's at the branches, which is the branching of the main cable system, and will will bring a whole sector to the island. Has not yet been determined where, but from the southern part of Crete, in order for the cable to pass, we will have an infrastructure towards the north and then to the rest of Greece. Everyone wishes this interconnection of the connection of these cables through a cable station with existing data centers, all those that will be created, that has been announced that they will be created. And there's also this gas in the energy sector, the Eurasian, that will connect Israel, Cyprus, continental Greece through Crete. We are in discussions now with the company, and there's also interest for participation. And also the optical fibers cables that the company will create and will carry on from Crete up to France. In closing, our cooperation with all these companies have already started and are in good way. The management of underwater cable systems, it provides a neutral interconnection. What does neutral mean? It's not only that we provide services through our own system. Everyone that can provide system, any provider, can enter our cable station and receive a service from a third party, anyone. And the Eastern Europe provides this chance for synergies as an important energy and telecommunicative hub, and we established the strategic position of Crete in the geopolitical map of the Southeastern Europe. And with our cooperations, we enhance the role of Crete as an important hub of telecommunication and energy and the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Psiris. Very interesting facts. I think that we have similar ambitions. We want Crete to make the energy hub in the Eastern Europe. I think that we're in the way of Minoets. This is what they've done. I'm coming to South Crete tomorrow to check some factors there, to see how we can do all this. These are not theoretical, what I'm saying. We start many. And Southern Crete is a very nice place. I'm not from Crete, but I love Cretan people from Crete. I've been told that we will have some drinks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And now this session is now completed. And the next sessions, we have another 3 sessions. There is a half an hour break, 5 minutes break.
Ζέστη. Πάσα μου είναι Θεσσαλονίκη.
Δεν ξέρω, ακούγομαι τώρα.
Στο στυλ. Είναι, βεβαίως. Ναι, στο στυλ. Ναι, δεν είναι ευθυντικό.
Ναι. Και έχουμε ένα case study για το Βόρειο Αιγαίο μόνο.
Υποτίθεται ότι γίνεται ένα πιλωτικό για το Βόρειο Αιγαίο, για το οποίο δεν έχουμε καθόλου πάλι από το...
Ανοίξαμε. Λοιπόν, παρακαλώ τους συμμετέχοντες, μόλις με ειδοποιήσαν ότι συνδεθήκαμε, σας καλημερίζω από τα Χανιά, από τον Πλατανιά.
Good morning from Platanias,
Είμαστε
Χανιά.
δύο εδώ, εγώ και ο κύριος Μουντάκης από το ΕΒΕΧ, και έχουμε τη χαρά να έχουμε και εσάς σε σύνδεση ψηφιακή. Καλημέρα. Για όσους δεν με γνωρίζουν, λέγομαι Τσούτσος, είμαι καθηγητής της Σχολής Χημικών, Μηχανικών και Μηχανικών Περιβάλλοντος στο Πολυτεχνείο Κρήτης. Δουλεύω 20 χρόνια στην Κρήτη πια σε αυτό το χώρο, σε θέματα που αφορούν την βιώσιμη ενέργεια και
in
την
Crete in
κινητικότητα.
matters of energy.
Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ για τη φιλοξενία την Cretan Energy Conferences. Μας έδωσε αυτό
Thank
το
you,
χώρο,
Cretan Energy
ευκαιρία,
Conferences,
να είμαστε όσο γίνεται
that
πιο κοντά,
gave us this chance.
στην αγορά και του τουρισμού. Το θέμα μας,
Our topic,
ελπίζουμε αυτοί που μας παρακολουθούν να έχουν μια
I hope that those watching us
θέαση.
have
Σκοπός μας
a
δεν είναι να γίνουμε
pleasant
τόσο πολύ διδακτικοί,
watch.
αλλά να μπορέσουμε
Our
λίγο
aim is not to
να
be
προτείνουμε,
didactic,
να
but
προτείνετε
to be
ειδικοί
able to suggest the
λύσεις,
experts, to suggest
να
solutions,
να εντοπίσουμε και κρίσιμα
and to
θέματα
face
τα οποία
critical
αφορούν την
issues that
βιώσιμη
concern
ενέργεια
the
και
sustainable
ο τουρισμός για το νησί μας είναι
energy and tourism. Tourism is a very critical issue for our island, for all the activities. The island now has many visitors, and this means pressure for the ecosystem and the environment, and at the same time, the energy crisis around us makes us to wonder what will happen, what we should do for the future. We should act more about the issue of renewable energy resources, and practically this means that the use the demand of the renewable resources energy will climb from 30 to 80% very soon. They're very hot topics. We have a program, Cross-Coastal Net. We'll try to combine some things. And we have the Cyprus University of Technology, Mr. Antonio, and I welcome you, as it's in the invitation, Mr. Alexakis, Vice Governor for European International Affairs, Region of Crete.
Και άλλα πράγματα που ενδεχομένως θέλει να μας τα πει στη συνέχεια. Τον Dr. Leonidas Antonio από το
Dr. Leonidas Antonio from Cyprus University of Technology.
Την κυρία, τη Dr. Χατζηγιάννη από την
Dr. Eleni Hatziani from the European Commission, DG Mare.
Που είναι ο αντιπεριφερειάρχης τουρισμού και e-government της περιφέρειας. Την κυρία καθηγήτρια Στέλλα Κιβέλο από το Πάτιο, που είναι και κύριο Μουντάκη, που εκπροσωπεί το εμπορικό και βιομηχανικό επιτελείο των Χανίων.
Hanya Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and George Milonakis, Mayor of Kissamos Municipality.
Δομή της συζήτησης που προτείνω, αλλά δεν είναι απλώς μια συμβουλή, δεν είναι απαγορευτική.
This is my recommendation.
Να είναι κάπως, θέλω να πω, και λίγο πιο χαλαρή.
It's for the discussion to be a little more. We have around from all speakers to make a comment about the subject of pressure on the ecosystems concerning tourism and energy. And then I have two questions for each speaker. I'd like to start from Mr. Alexakis. Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation. We would be happier and more productive in the discussion if you had invited us in Chania to be there, to be more relaxed and therefore more productive in expressing our ideas. So I'm talking as a vice governor for the regional issues of Crete, because I am able to be the vice president in the CRPN, the coastal and marine regions of Europe, and therefore I have experience on these matters. Also, vice president in the Euromontana, which are some regions who face the same problems, but in a different orientation. Also, I would say that the subject that we have to discuss now is the impact of tourism, energy, and economic growth. These three factors, how they impact on the sustainable development of ecosystems. This is what I understand. And I understand that sustainable development is the enriched term it has, which exceeds the limits of the historic tradition of the protection of the environment. It has now been enriched with the extreme weather conditions which we saw taking place also on our island. It is also enriched by the need of recovery from the pandemic, and we're talking about the economic recovery in a widerly on the economy of the companies, of the businesses, and also it is also being enhanced by the need of digitalization, by the need of circular economy, and by the need of social innovation. And all these compose the modern term of sustainable development, which exceeds the narrow environmental limits and extends to social and economic issues in protection of the environment, extreme weather conditions, a recovery from the pandemic, digitalization, circular economy, social innovation. All these we try to bring them to our regional, to include them in our regional policies. And the region of Crete has been proven proactive in this matter, because with our work with this, since the establishment of the institution of the region, and by our participation in the European and competitive projects, by the observation of the European policies, we found out about the European agenda. We learned that we need to look more forward. So, for the circular economy, for example, we learn about it from the European programs before it became a policy. And for the region of Crete, we made it more recent. And the issue is how we can pass this understanding, this culture of sustainable development to our regional policies, for example, to the regional strategy for the circular economy, for the climate change, and we try to pass this to our regional and local programs like the EST funds, and already the new regional strategy for the new specialization has a distinguished axis which refers to the sustainable crisis and also specializes in sustainable towns and cities and the morphological use of water and the blue development. And due to the participation of Ms. Kivello and Ms. Kadziani, which are more experts in these matters, we suggest a new innovation. We're going to have a distinguished reference for the blue development in a regional strategy of a region, obviously an island in the middle of the Mediterranean. But if we think that a year ago, 2 or 3 years ago, we didn't have this at all, and now Europe is facing this. This is now very important, and at last we have institutionalized this, and we have make the blue development a matter here in the Crete. And for those that do not know, please, Mr. Dr. Leonidas Antoniou from Cyprus University of Technology, a few words about his institutions and their position towards this program, as Mr. Alexakis suggested, energy, tourism, and sustainable development. Good morning to everyone from Nicosia. We have a very high temperature and sunshine. 40 degrees we have today. So our topic, Mr. Alexakis has covered very well the introduction. I would say that we're talking about a classical project which has to do with choices in terms of the way of the format of the regional development, where we have many rivalries. So this phenomenon has to do about the ambitions of the one side for uncontrolled development, and on the other hand, we have the preservation of the natural environment, the assurance, the perseverance of sustainability of the ecosystems. And even though I said that we're talking about a traditional project, despite this, in our era, how we face and plan this, there are many dimensions, very important. Mr. Alexakis mentioned most of them, have to do with circular economy, with climate change, with parameters which 20, 30 years ago were not on the table. And there is a conflict between the trends. And that's why how we face this phenomena now is much more complex. I would like to close my introductory remarks to put in the discussion another dimension which is very important, which has to do with the participation of social groups of NGOs who have a say, and of course, and in many cases they are very active in terms of how a region can be developed. So in this rivalry between development or the development and touristic area in terms of the maritime environment and offshore and land environment, up to now the discussion was being made among the public authorities and the communities. Now there is a new dimension which is very important. We have organizations, and usually they are not just local organizations, they're like wider, like from other areas as well. Usually they're national organizations who defend the protection of the environment and other things, and they are involved with a very important way in this dialogue and discussion. So I would say that a critical issue which has to do with the preservation of these ecosystems has also to do with about where these ecosystems belong. Do they belong only to the regions, affected regions, towns or cities, or to the whole island, for example, Crete or Cyprus, or even according to their importance and in total to the European area? So who has a say in this dialogue? So I just put this dimension on the table, which has to do with who should be involved and who should be interested for this. Thank you very much, Mr. Antoniou. I think we have a very nice bridge to the part of politics. Ms. Hadjigianni, for Crete is a special person. Unfortunately, you have another role there, but you're also very close to us. That's why we asked you to be with us today. If you could just give us a more fresh approach to this issue from the side of the European Commission. Good morning from Brussels, and thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here with you. I wish I could be there in person. I hope I can do this in a few days. As I told you, as you said, I work in the DG Mare, in the European Commission, especially in the unit for the strategies of regional maritime cooperation and sea protection and security. Tourism and renewable energy resources and energy in general are objects of the DG Mare in cooperation with other directorates of the European Commission concerning energy, DG Ener. However, allow me, beyond the object of DG Mare, concerning these two subjects, I would like to refer to the wider umbrella which has to do with the discussion today concerning the participation of DG Mare, and this is a concept of sustainable development. So, the European Commission and generally DG Mare have adopted a year now and announced a new approach for the sustainable development in the fields of sustainable development and the exploitation of renewable resources from the sea. And this new approach for the sustainable development is in accordance on how we can implement the axis of the Green Deal, the European Green Deal, which aims to new activities and projects on behalf of the member states of the EU in terms of how we can make greener the economy sectors and recovery from the COVID pandemic and other current challenges such as the climate change, and also with the basic pillar, the pillar of digitalization, which of course is very important in matters of sustainable development and tourism. Beyond this topic, I'd like to refer to something which has already been mentioned by Mr. Alexakis and Mr. Antoniou, and this has to do with those ways in which sustainable development can be accelerated. First of all, cooperation in terms of sea and geographical locations, because offshore regions and ecosystems are areas for which we should achieve a cooperation in order to act collectively and implement actions towards sustainable development. And secondly, because basic tools for this aim are, first of all, the maritime planning and the offshore zone concerning the offshore and onshore areas where a big part of tourism is being developed, the offshore tourism and sea tourism, and of course innovation, which is implemented due to the implementation of the strategies and the prioritization of actions of the regions with the activeness of the innovation, which is the social authorities and the society in general. So the incorporation of these actions in the regional strategies with the aim of the sustainability in the blue factors such as the offshore and sea tourism and the renewable energy resources contribute very much to this direction. I would like to talk more extensively later on. So that was just an introduction which could instigate how the discussion about the offshore environment for the sustainable development of tourism, which is dependent from a healthy environment by the sustainable use of the natural capital and many activities, and this has as a result has an increased demand and consumption of resources, and this is where the contribution of the local authorities comes for cooperation and the creation and implementation of specific actions and programs. So that was a bridge to the to the next speaker as well. Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation. To the question how the situation is being formed today concerning tourism, it's complex, very excellent in our everyday life, but also very tragic. I repeat this, if we do not water a field one time, it's not a problem, but if there is a drought, even if you water it 100 times, it couldn't be come to this how it was before. Now, strategically, there is a triumph. In the city, there is a lot of traffic. There is a situation which combines an exotic magic, but also difficulties in everyday life. The offshore and maritime areas are combined many years now for the touristic development of Crete, in a region which is dependent on tourism. And also at the same time, the traditional model, sea and sun, it's a basic pillar. Crete has everything, but has to prove it. So the basic question is the harmonic planning, a phrase for centuries in Greece and in Crete was a very important issue. It's a discussion which, in my opinion, will last for decades, but it will determine whether the planet will continue to enjoy this paradise or will seek new subjects. The regional strategies are very simple. There are many strategies from the UN, from the Physiolatric Organization for Snails in Psiloritis. And first of all, there are academic and research establishments and initiatives from the EU, and the regional administrations or regions or municipalities should adopt these elements will arise from these activities and adapt them in the specifications of each region without limiting them. And the local societies should enhance all these integrated strategies. No one is abandoned, let alone the local societies. But we need to be focused more on authenticity. This would be a very nice start. The concept to revert the challenges of the climate change is something difficult because we have some deposits in the climate change account from all the planet and all the regions a lot of years, and now we need to check the program of the region of Greece and see ways on how to limit the consequences. We need to doping should not be more quick than anti-doping, and I'm talking about the temperature of the Earth planet. And it's a philosophy of culture. Culture is everything that we do when no one is demanding us to do. We have a hospitality culture in our DNA. We have authenticity culture to hear what the experts say, to adopt initiatives, looking forward to the future, and everything will go well. So the resilience in economy will have a strategic plan, and as in all branches, we should not be dependent on specific production formats, free competitiveness, specialization and options. It's something that we can discuss over and over. And Crete showed the way, having workshops for COVID, reference hospitals, and has educated more than 150,000 people. This is the solution, and showed the solution. And concerning energy, Aeolos, Phaethonas are still strong. So you understand that my opinion is that sometimes we should not just say what we do, and also but we should also say what we do not do. Very correctly. So we are more interested in what we do not do than that what we need to correct, or what makes us better. Miss Kivelu. Good morning. So I'd like to introduce myself. I'm a professor in Pantheon University of Social and Political Sciences. I'm architect. I have introduced a subject in maritime planning. It's the first undergraduate program in Greece. And the second, when do you deliver a lesson? I should come. This is for undergraduate students. So we also do masters. We do postgraduate studies as well. Very nice. So my what I do is work in sustainable development. I'd like to say that, Ms. Hadjiannis, you talked about natural capital. Let's not forget that sustainable development is based on a new, relatively new concept of wealth, which composes of many capitals, and one of these is the preservation of wealth is sustainable development, and of course the financial capital, products and services. So you also we need the cultural capital, which can be split into the social capital. So it's a very holistic dimension what we're going to talk about today. So, and beyond my research and my job, I work, and I'm really excited as expert for Eastern Mediterranean in terms of the support mechanisms for the maritime planning, to support to the member states, DG Mare, on how to be able to plan the maritime plans. We also do surveys, researches. One of them had to do and has to do with the introduction of underwater cultural inheritance and the incorporation with the natural economy and inheritance to the land and maritime, land planning. This issue is being developed, and this concerns us as a country on many levels. On national level, of course, which is the competent authority. Maybe not only that, and I have also written a book about the maritime and land use planning. The French department had a meeting in 2013 about this subject. 2012, yes. Thank you.
Άρα 10 χρόνια.
So it was 10 years ago.
Και λοιπόν, θεωρώ ότι γίνεται πολλή δουλειά.
I think that a lot is being done, but we do not go forward in Greece because there was always some delays. These are well known in Greece. On the contrary, I would put this matter of the activeness. I have previously worked with development. I have worked on the local level. And we see that this is a policy of the EU because we have said that we're going to work for the region of Crete, and with the help of Mr. Alexakis. I thank you very much, Mr. Alexakis. And on a new project of the MFEFF, of the Fisheries Fund, Gina LSB, and concerns this subject, how maritime and land use planning will become also a duty, in which fields can be a duty of the local authorities. And this concerns Crete, because such an island, such a society it's not possible not to have a say in this matter. And a lot of things are going to take place concerning the Repower EU, the subject of energy and the renewable resources and floating parks, cabling between Crete and Peloponnesos. I think that the real subject, I think that Crete now will play a crucial role concerning energy matters, but also concerning tourism matters. I need to say that the 2004, the directive has as a cornerstone the management of ecosystems. So sea is a huge interconnecting system, and our maritime and land use plans, this planning of the sea activities should be examined and should not exceed the limit of the ecosystems. And ecosystems should remain healthy. We should not exceed the biological limits. We should not exceed the indices which have been introduced by the previous directive, which are the environmental pillar, which is the integrated directive about the maritime policy, which is the environmental pillar of the policy. So this is where we start from, and this directive of the maritime and land use planning of 2014 includes and takes elements from these. However, this would mean that our ministry, for example, the land use part, which is responsible for the policy making for the land use planning, should be coordinated very well with the other part of the ministry which works with the MSFE, with the directive and all these I've mentioned about the land use indices, the environmental situation of the maritime environment. This is something we should examine. We should have synergies, not conflicts. We should talk about a strategy which is more easier to achieve. So about this management of ecosystems, in closing, I would say that me personally, I would put this subject in the activation of on the local level, There is also a national level, but also and the role of the local level. So we should create, the local authorities should instrumentalize and organize groups and schemes which would work in this direction. They could do this. They should not have the duty to, they should work systematically and have a continuum between land and sea. And unfortunately, the legislation 2020 fragmented this. The law of 2020, in contrast with the directive which talks about sea, the maritime ecosystems are depending on the land systems, and they have the impact on each other. There are two completely different ecosystems, but they are dependent on each other. So the law said that the maritime and land use planning, this European integrated strategic planning, should be valid only until the maritime zone.
Κυρία Κηδέλου, λέτε καταπληκτικά πράγματα και δεν μπορούσα να σας διακόψω. Παρακαλώ πολύ. Όχι, ίσα-ίσα, επειδή εγγράφετε, ίσα-ίσα νομίζω ότι η συζήτηση όπως εξελίσσεται, ίσως λίγο πιο χαλαρά, νομίζω ότι είναι σε πολύ ψηλό επίπεδο. Οφείλω το λέω πραγματικά και το εννοώ, δεν το λέω ευγενικά. Απλώς θέλω να δώσω σε κάποιο λογικό χρόνο τη δυνατότητα σε όλους να κάνουμε ένα πρώτο κύκλο. Έχει μείνει ο κύριος. Ναι, βέβαια. Θα έχουμε μετά και θα έχουμε απλώς μια προσπάθεια όσο γίνεται. Το πρώτο κομμάτι ήταν λίγο πιο χαλαρό και πολύ σωστά. Θα έχω περίπου 2 ερωτήσεις στον καθένα, όσο μπορούμε πιο σύντομα, ώστε να τελειώσουμε, να ολοκληρώσουμε τον κύκλο σε ένα σωστό χρόνο. Φυσικά δεν είναι αυστηρές οι απαντήσεις, όπως πολύ σωστά καταλαβαίνετε. Αν έχετε κάτι να πείτε ή να ανακαλέσετε, προφανώς και γίνεται. Θα ήθελα λοιπόν στη συνέχεια, για να κλείσουμε τον κύκλο των γνωριμιών, τον κύριο Μουντάκη, ο οποίος δουλεύει στο εμπορικό και βιομηχανικό επιμελητήριο Χανίων. Δουλεύουν στην καρδιά του τουρισμού, στην καρδιά της οικονομίας και στην καρδιά του προβλήματος. Είναι η μεριά της αγοράς. Οπότε σας ακούμε, κύριε Μουντάκη.
Καλημέρα σας και από μένα. Καλημέρα και στους συνομιλητές. Σας ευχαριστώ για την πρόσκληση. Ήθελα απλά να διευκρινίσω ότι δεν δουλεύω στο επιμελητήριο. Είμαι μέλος της διοίκησης του επιμελητηρίου.
Το Διοικητικό Συμβούλιο.
Είμαστε επιχειρηματίες οι οποίοι έχουμε εκλεγεί στο Διοικητικό Συμβούλιο του επιμελητηρίου. Θα πάρω πάσα από φράσεις και πράγματα που άκουσα από τους συνομιλητές που έχουν να κάνουν με την τουριστική ανάπτυξη, την αηφόρο τουριστική ανάπτυξη, με την αηφόρο περιβαλλοντολογική εξέλιξη και πώς αυτό μπορεί να συνδέεται με την οικονομική ανάπτυξη του τόπου και την τουριστική ανάπτυξη του τόπου. Το Επιμελητήριο Χανίων, αποτελώντας έτσι ένα ενεργό μέρος της κοινωνίας.
Πολύ δραστήριο μάλιστα.
Δραστήριο κυρίως το κομμάτι της οικονομικής δραστηριότητας, του ιδιωτικού τομέα της κάθε περιοχής, και σε μια περιοχή όπου το 50-51% του ΑΕΠ του τοπικού ΑΕΠ, της τοπικής οικονομίας προέρχεται από τον τουρισμό, είναι νομίζω αντιληπτό σε όλους ότι εάν είναι ένας φορέας, ας πούμε, ένας τομέας της κοινωνίας που πρέπει να ενεργοποιηθεί σε όλη αυτή τη διαδικασία του awareness, ας πούμε, της ενεργοποίησης όσον αφορά με τα περιβαλλοντολογικά ζητήματα, τα ζητήματα ενέργειας και τη σύνδεσή τους με την κοινωνία και την οικονομία, νομίζω ότι ο καταλληλότερος φορέας όλων είναι το επιμελητήριο, είναι η εκπροσώπηση της επιχειρηματικής κοινότητας, και είναι αυτό νομίζω που μπορεί να κάνει και τη διαφορά, ώστε όλη αυτή η συζήτηση από το ακαδημαϊκό επίπεδο και το ερευνητικό επίπεδο να περάσει και να γίνει μέρος της κοινωνίας και να αποτελέσει συζήτηση του συνόλου της κοινωνίας, ούτως ώστε να αφυπνίσει, ας πούμε, και τον τελευταίο επιχειρηματία, να γίνει κατανοητό ότι όταν η οικονομία και η ανάπτυξη δεν στηρίζεται στο σεβασμό στο περιβάλλον πρωτίστως, δεν μπορεί να έχει διάρκεια, άρα δεν μπορούμε να μιλάμε για αειφορία. Σε αυτό το πλαίσιο, λοιπόν, και με όλα αυτά, έχοντας όλα αυτά κατά νου, καταθέσαμε στο πλαίσιο του Ίντερεκ Ελλάδα-Κύπρος την πρόταση για το Cross Coastal Net. Φτιάξαμε το εταιρικό σχήμα, στο οποίο συμμετέχει και το Πολυτεχνείο και εσείς και ΣΤΣΟ. Κατατέθηκε η πρόταση, εγκρίθηκε και έχουμε ξεκινήσει πλέον την υλοποίηση. Σκοπός του προγράμματος επί της ουσίας είναι να αφυπνίσουμε την τοπική κοινωνία, να δούμε, να μετρήσουμε το κατά πόσο μπορεί, λαμβάνοντας υπόψη συγκεκριμένες περιοχές, τόσο στην Κρήτη και συγκεκριμένα τον Πάλο, όσο και στην Κύπρο, το ακροτήριο του Ακάμα, να δούμε κατά πόσο αυτές οι περιοχές, ποια είναι τα μετρήσιμα στοιχεία που μπορούμε να λάβουμε για την αειφορία και για την ανάπτυξη των περιοχών αυτών, και κατά πόσο μπορεί αυτή η τουριστική ανάπτυξη να επηρεάσει το οικοσύστημα εκεί και να λειτουργήσει αρνητικά. Εφόσον τα δεδομένα που θα καταλήξει τα συμπεράσματα που θα καταλήξουμε είναι τέτοια που θα μας οδηγήσουν προς τη μία ή την άλλη κατεύθυνση, τότε θα πρέπει και η κοινωνία και κατ' επέκταση και η επιχειρηματική κοινότητα να λάβει τα ανάλογα μέτρα, ούτως ώστε να αποφύγουμε κάποιες δυσμενείς εξελίξεις.
Ευχαριστώ. Απλώς με διευκρίνησε αυτό που είπε ο κ. Μουντάκης. Προφανώς μέσα σε αυτά τα σχέδια τα οποία είναι σε εξέλιξη προβλέπεται και η διαβούλευση. Έχουμε πάρα πολύ χρόνο να αφιερώσουμε πάνω στη διαβούλευση, στη συζήτηση, ώστε να βρούμε μια βιώσιμη λύση, η οποία να περιλαμβάνει τόσο θέματα του φυσικού περιβάλλοντος, της ποιότητας του φυσικού περιβάλλοντος, θέματα πολιτικής, θέματα της αγοράς, αλλά και θέματα τα οποία μπορούν να είναι τελικά, να δημιουργήσουν ένα κοινό τόπο, ώστε να μπορέσουμε να ξεκινήσουμε και να βρούμε λύσεις. Σε αυτό το σημείο, λοιπόν, αρχίζω τον κύκλο των ερωτήσεων. Η πρώτη ερώτηση είναι, και θα την απευθύνω πρώτα στην κυρία Χατζηγιάννη, είναι αν μπορούν να συνδυαστούν η ανάπτυξη αυτών των παράκτιων και νησιώτικων περιοχών και θαλάσσιων περιοχών σε αρμονία με τον τουρισμό και την οικονομία. Εδώ εξορισμού γνωρίζουμε ότι υπάρχει μια σύγκρουση, άρα πώς θα μπορούσε ή υπάρχει αυτή η δυνατότητα ώστε η τουριστική ανάπτυξη, όχι growth, στον πρώτο όρο development, να είναι σε αρμονία με την οικονομική μεγέθυνση στο θέμα του τουρισμού. Ναι. Κύριε Χατζηγιάννη.
Ευχαριστώ για την ερώτηση. Ξεκινώντας βέβαια μονολεκτικά με την απάντηση που είναι βεβαίως στο ναι, διότι η ανάπτυξη ουσιαστικά μερική, όταν μιλάμε για ανάπτυξη, εννοούμε και την ανάπτυξη σε αριθμούς και την ανάπτυξη ανάπτυξη με τρόπο βιώσιμο προς το περιβάλλον και μάλιστα με τη διάσταση που η κυρία Κιβέλου και ο κ. Αλεξάκης στην αρχή έβαλαν, δηλαδή με την έννοια της οικονομικής, κοινωνικής και περιβαλλοντικής βιωσιμότητας. Έτσι, με αυτή την έννοια όλων των κεφαλαίων δηλαδή που εμπλέκονται σε αυτό. Και αλίμονο εξάλλου αν δεν μπορούσε να γίνει αυτή η ανάπτυξη, διότι τότε δεν θα συζητούσαμε σήμερα και δεν θα προσβλέπαμε και προς μελλοντικές δραστηριότητες. Όμως, το θέμα είναι πώς επιτυγχάνεται αυτή η χρυσή τομή για την οποία συζητάμε στο πλαίσιο της βιωσιμότητας και πώς στο εξής θα υλοποιήσουμε τα έργα και τις δραστηριότητες μας ως κοινωνία, προκειμένου να επιτύχουμε αυτό. Εδώ τώρα επισέρχονται διάφοροι παράγοντες. Πρώτα-πρώτα, πάντα υπήρχε το θέμα και υπάρχει ακόμα ο έλεγχος των περιβαλλοντικών επιπτώσεων και των εναλλακτικών, ας το πούμε, έργων που μπορούν να γίνουν όταν πάμε να αναπτύξουμε μια δραστηριότητα ή ένα έργο που σχετίζεται με τον τουρισμό σε μια περιοχή. Αλλά πέρα από αυτό, υπάρχουν και νέες προσεγγίσεις πια στο πώς υλοποιούμε τα έργα και κάνοντάς τα και με διαφορετικό τρόπο. Και θα εξηγήσω τι εννοώ. Για παράδειγμα, έχει μπει η έννοια της κυκλικής οικονομίας. Η έννοια της κυκλικής οικονομίας τα τελευταία χρόνια είναι μια νέα προσέγγιση που ουσιαστικά διαφοροποιεί αυτό που ως τότε ξέραμε ως ορθή διαχείριση των πόρων, ορθή διαχείριση των αποβλήτων, ορθή ανακύκλωση ως ένας βασικός τρόπος, ας το πούμε, διαχείρισης των αποβλήτων και ολοκληρωμένης διαχείρισης των πόρων, προς ένα κυκλικό μοντέλο πια σε επίπεδο επιχείρησης, δηλαδή ένα νέο επιχειρηματικό μοντέλο με μία έξυπνη, όπως λέμε, αλυσίδα αξίας, το οποίο τι σημαίνει? Σημαίνει ότι σε όλα τα στάδια μιας επιχειρηματικής δραστηριότητας, είτε αυτό αφορά την κατανάλωση των πρώτων υλών, είτε αφορά τα προϊόντα μιας επιχείρησης, είτε αφορά τις μεθοδολογίες που εφαρμόζει, είτε αφορά τους τρόπους λειτουργίας μιας επιχείρησης, και εδώ έρχεται η ψηφιοποίηση, εδώ έρχονται άλλες μεθοδολογίες επιχειρηματικού μοντέλου. Μπαίνει αυτό το κομμάτι της κυκλικής προσέγγισης, το οποίο είναι μια βασική νέα προσέγγιση όταν μιλάμε για βιώσιμη ανάπτυξη οικονομικών τομέων και βέβαια εδώ μιλάμε και για τον τουρισμό. Πέρα από αυτό όμως υπάρχουν και άλλες προσεγγίσεις που έχουν να κάνουν, όπως είπαμε πριν, με το πώς κάνουμε νέα πράγματα. Και τι εννοώ? Ας πάμε στην περίπτωση, ας το πούμε, των υποδομών και της χρήσης των καυσίμων, που οι υποδομές, κακά τα ψέματα, είναι η ραχοκοκαλιά του τουρισμού, διότι αποτελούν βασικό κλάδο δραστηριοτήτων πάνω στις οποίες βασίζεται όλη η κινητικότητα αυτή που προκαλεί την τουριστική κίνηση και κατ' επέκταση τον τουρισμό. Έτσι λοιπόν, η βιωσιμότερη, ας το πούμε, αξιοποίηση όλων των μορφών ενέργειας τις οποίες μπορεί να χρησιμοποιήσουν οι υποδομές. Το πρασίνισμα των υποδομών, τα εναλλακτικά καύσιμα. Στην περίπτωση των λιμανιών, η αξιοποίηση και η ανάπτυξη των λιμανιών ως, όπως λέμε, hubs, δηλαδή εργαστήρια, ας το πούμε, βιώσιμης ανάπτυξης που συνδέουν την πόλη, δηλαδή το κομμάτι της αστικής ανάπτυξης στη στεριά, με το μέτωπο της πόλης που είναι η θάλασσα, που είναι το λιμάνι και που δεν αποτελεί πια μία υποβαθμισμένη ή μία ιδιαίτερα, ας το πούμε, καταπονημένη περιοχή, αλλά ένα πνεύμονα βιώσιμης ανάπτυξης και ένα φυσικό τρόπο σύνδεσης της κρουαζιέρας, των επισκεπτών, του τουρισμού με την ξηρά. Αυτά είναι, ας το πούμε, δύο παραδείγματα μέσα από τα οποία μπορούμε να δούμε το πώς μπορεί ο κλάδος ως συγκεκριμένος, αλλά και άλλοι, να αναπτυχθούν με βιώσιμο τρόπο και έτσι και να έχουμε αύξηση στους αριθμούς που σχετίζονται καθαρά με την οικονομική ανάπτυξη και πρέπει, αλλά και να έχουμε, ας το πούμε, ισόρροπη ανάπτυξη όλων αυτών των παραμέτρων που σχετίζονται με μια βιώσιμη προσέγγιση των οικοσυστημάτων, του φυσικού πλούτου, του φυσικού κεφαλαίου, των πόρων και της διαχείρισης και εκμετάλλευσης εντών εισαγωγικών, θα πω καλύτερα, αξιοποίησης όλων των πόρων αυτών. Εδώ έρχεται το θέμα αυτό που έθεσε και η κυρία Κιβέλου και θα ήθελα, αν μου επιτρέπετε λίγο, να επιμείνω σε αυτό, το θέμα της τοπικής πρωτοβουλίας και της ενεργοποίησης των πολιτών. Είναι βασικό και το υποστηρίζει σε μεγάλο βαθμό η Ευρωπαϊκή Πολιτιστική Συνοχής με την έννοια της ενεργοποίησης των τοπικών πρωτοβουλειών και των τοπικών κοινοτήτων ανάπτυξης. Είναι οι λεγόμενες πρωτοβουλίες που ξεκινούν από τους πολίτες. Και γιατί με βάση και αυτό που ανέφερα στην αρχή, που σήμερα πια ονομάζουμε ως καινοτόμα προσέγγιση και εννοούμε την ενεργοποίηση όχι μόνο του δημόσιου τομέα, ο οποίος ασκεί πολιτική, αξιοποιεί τα ευρωπαϊκά χρηματοδοτικά εργαλεία, αλλά και των ερευνητών, γιατί οι ερευνητές δίνουν τις καινοτόμες ιδέες που μπορούν να αποτελέσουν νέα επιχειρηματικά προϊόντα, αλλά και του ιδιωτικού τομέα, επιπλέον όμως και των πολιτών. Έτσι λοιπόν είναι, κατά την άποψή μου, σημαντική η ενεργοποίηση σε τοπικό επίπεδο, η οργάνωση και η ενεργοποίηση τοπικών ομάδων που μπορούν να αποτελέσουν ως βασικούς πυλώνες διαβούλευσης τοπικής και οργάνωση σε τοπικό επίπεδο, προκειμένου να γίνει ένας σχεδιασμός σε τοπικό ή σε περιφερειακό επίπεδο, να προτεραιοποιηθούν δράσεις προς αυτή την κατεύθυνση της βιώσιμης ανάπτυξης του τουρισμού, σε συνύπαρξη με αυτό που όλοι μας επιθυμούμε, προσέλκυση μεγάλων τουριστικών ρευμάτων και αξιοποίηση και βελτιστοποίηση του πλούτου, των παροχών που μπορεί να παρέχει ο πλούτος των περιοχών μας σε παγκόσμιο επίπεδο.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ. Κύριο Κότσογλου, το θέμα μας είναι αν είναι ρεαλιστικός ο συνδυασμός, αν μπορούν να αναπτυχθούν σε αρμονία ο τουρισμός και το περιβάλλον, τα οποία φαινομενικά είναι σε σύγκρουση.
Ναι, νομίζω αναφέρθηκα και πριν. Είναι σαφές ότι ο τουρισμός και το περιβάλλον πρέπει να έρθουν σε αρμονία. Ξέρετε, αμέσως μετά την πανδημία, σε Tourism Innovation Summits, τα οποία έγιναν σε όλο τον κόσμο, ακριβώς επειδή παρήλθε σε ποσοστό πάνω από 65%, είπε ότι θα επιλέγω τις διακοπές μου αηφόρες, θα επιλέγω nature-based περιοχές βασισμένες στο φυσικό περιβάλλον, και παράλληλα πλέον θεωρώ ότι αυτή η ίδια η πανδημία ήταν η οποία αύξησε τη διάθεσή μου για αηφορία. Κατά συνέπεια, το ξαναλέμε άλλη μια φορά, δεν γίνεται. Η Κρήτη είναι ένας χώρος με εξαιρετικό ανάγλυφο, με 1047 χιλιόμετρα ακτογραμμής και ένα ανάγλυφο το οποίο υπόσχεται πολλά για την εμπειρία την τουριστική. Το θέμα είναι η αρμονικότητα της συνύπαρξης. Οπουδήποτε βλέπετε ότι αυτό το πράγμα έχει διαφορετικά μεταφραστεί. Διαφορετικά το μετάφρασε η Μάλτα, διαφορετικά το μετέφρασε η Μαγιόρκα, διαφορετικά το μετέφρασε η Σαρδινία, αν μιλήσουμε για τη Μεσόγειο. Κατά συνέπεια, νομίζω ότι πρέπει να κάνουμε ένα καλό definition εμείς, που είχαμε μεγαλώσει με την αίσθηση του μέτρου, τι εννοούμε αρμονικότητα. Θεωρώ ότι θα πρέπει να γίνει αυτό που είπαμε. Η κυκλική οικονομία, όπως λειτουργούσε παλιά σε παραδοσιακό επίπεδο, έλεγε ότι εγώ δεν πετάω τίποτα. Μου λέγε μια θεία μου στο χωριό, εσείς πετάτε. Εμείς ό,τι χρειάζεται το ανακυκλώνουμε στα ζώα, τα κότες ή οτιδήποτε. Εσείς αυτό που κάνετε, είστε πληγμένοι στο πλαστικό και το χαρτί, ψάξτε να δείτε τι θα κάνετε τα σκουπίδια σας τη στιγμή που εμείς τα εκμεταλλευόμαστε με κάθε τρόπο. Κατά συνέπεια λοιπόν, αγαπητέ κύριε καθηγητά και αγαπητοί συνάδελφοι εδώ πέρα, είναι σαφές ότι θα συνυπάρξει. Δεν είναι δυνατόν σε μια περιοχή που, όπως το είπαμε και πριν, ξεπερνάει το 50% η συμμετοχή της στο ΑΕΠ, να μην υπάρχει το περιβάλλον. Απλά το σύστημα το κουράζουμε κάθε μέρα. Έχετε δει ότι αναφορικά όχι μόνο στην Κρήτη, όπου έχουν έρθει κακές κριτικές για σημεία λετζένταρη θρυλικά όπως ο Μπάλος, το ίδιο έχει γίνει και με την Κεφαλονιά στον Ήχθο, το ίδιο έχει γίνει και στο Ναυάγιο, το ίδιο έχει γίνει και στο Σαρακίνικο στη Μήλο. Ξεκινάει ο κόσμος και αντιδράει. Στην πραγματικότητα, το ξαναλέω και πάλι, τα likes θα είναι περισσότερα από τα dislikes και οι ευχαριστημένοι θα είναι περισσότεροι από τους άλλους. Όμως κουράζουμε τον προορισμό κάθε μέρα. Θα πρέπει να ξεκινήσει και να είμαστε proactive, όπως είπε ακριβώς και ο Γιώργος, ακόμα περισσότερο. Δεν γίνεται να τα αναστρέψουμε όλα, μπορούμε να τα περιορίσουμε. Οι λύσεις είναι εδώ μπροστά, μερικές από αυτές θα τις προτείνετε κι εσείς. Σημασία έχει πόσο πραγματικά θέλουμε να τις ακολουθήσουμε και όχι πόσο λέμε ότι θέλουμε να τις ακολουθήσουμε.
Ωραία. Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ. Βλέπουμε και μια σύγκληση και μια αισιοδοξία στο θέμα αυτό που τη χρειαζόμαστε στις μέρες μας. Στην επόμενη ερώτηση, η επόμενη ερώτηση είναι τη διαβάζω είναι αν οι τοπικές στρατηγικές μπορούν να ενσωματώσουν τις βασικές αρχές του βιώσιμου τουρισμού. Ήδη θα έλεγα έχει γίνει μια αναφορά στην εισαγωγή. Θα παρακαλούσα σε αυτό το θέμα να απαντήσει ο κ. Αλεξάκης και ο κ. Αντωνίου. Το θέμα μας είναι κατά πόσο και πώς οι τοπικές στρατηγικές μπορούν να βιώσουν. Ήδη έμεσα έχει απαντηθεί, αλλά θα έλεγα ας ακούσουμε και κάποια σχόλια παραπάνω ακριβώς αυτό το θέμα. Κατά πόσο οι τοπικά θα μπορέσουμε να το επιτύχουμε και με ποιον τρόπο βεβαίως. Κύριε Αλεξάκη.
Ευχαριστώ. Θα ήθελα να προσθέσω ένα σημείο από τα προηγούμενα. Ότι εάν μπείτε στα site των μεγάλων tour operator αυτή την εποχή μετά την πανδημία, θα δείτε ότι υπάρχει το λόγο Sustainable Holidays. Όλοι διαφημίζουν ότι ελάτε σε εμάς γιατί προτείνουμε sustainable προορισμούς, sustainable holidays, sustainable species. Έχει γίνει πάρα πολύ marketing το sustainable. Κανείς βέβαια δεν αποδεικνύει αν αυτό που πουλάει είναι sustainable ή όχι. Αλλά τουλάχιστον σε επίπεδο όρους marketing είναι πάρα πολύ διαδεδομένο. Τώρα, σχετικά με την συγκεκριμένη ερώτηση. Ναι, βεβαίως μπορούν. Πώς. Το πώς. Απαιτείται γνώση ακαδημαϊκή, εμπειρική, γνώση των στρατηγικών που θέλει να εφαρμόσει. Δεν μπορεί αυτό να το κάνει οποιοσδήποτε χειριστής μιας υπόθεσης. Χρειάζεται επιστημονική κατάρτιση, συμβολή, χρειάζεται η εμπειρία από best practice άλλων περιοχών για να δεις πώς θα έκαναν αυτές τις περιοχές τους και πώς θα το προσαρμόσει, τροποποιήσει στη περιοχή. Και αυτό μπορεί να γίνει με ένα τοπικό σχέδιο που θα κάνει localize και customize κάθε ευρωπαϊκή στρατηγική που θέλουμε, αυτή που λέμε για το sustainable development, θα το εφαρμόζει τοπικά, θα θέτει εκ των προτέρων δείκτες μέτρησης της κατάστασης και θα το κάνει engagement που λέμε εδώ στην Κρήτη με την τοπική κοινωνία και ειδικότερα με τους νέους επιστήμονες και με τους επιχειρηματίες. Διότι οι νέοι επιστήμονες είναι αυτοί που θα καθοδηγήσουν την τοπική κοινωνία σε επίπεδο διαμόρφωσης άποψης και κουλτούρας και οι επιχειρηματίες θα είναι αυτοί που θα το δουλέψουν στην πραγματική οικονομία. Θα ήθελα να αναφέρω 2-3 παραδείγματα πώς αυτά έχουν υλοποιηθεί στην Κρήτη. Όχι ολοκληρωτικά, αλλά είναι καλές πρακτικές. Πριν από λίγες μέρες γενιάστηκε το πρώτο μεγάλο φωτοβολταϊκό πάρκο μιας ενεργειακής κοινότητας που λέγεται Μινώα. Είναι μια ενεργειακή κοινότητα ευρείας λαϊκής βάσης. Είναι ένα πάρα πολύ καλό παράδειγμα. Επίσης, η Περιφέρεια Κρήτης μέσω του ΕΣΠΑ χρηματοδοτεί την ενεργειακή αναβάθμιση σχολείων και νοσοκομείων. Είναι και αυτό ένα σημαντικό παράδειγμα. Επίσης, η Περιφέρεια Κρήτης στο Ηράκλειο, το κεντρικό της κτίριο, αναβαθμίζεται ενεργειακά με ευρωπαϊκούς πόρους και εθνικούς πόρους μέσα από ένα πρόγραμμα του Ιντερεκ Ελλάδα-Κύπρος. Επίσης, στον τουρισμό κάναμε τα σεμινάρια που ανέφερε ο Κυριάκος πριν για το πώς θα αντιπαρέλθουμε τις επιπτώσεις στην αντιμετώπιση του COVID, σεμινάρια που αποστήνονταν σε όλο τον κόσμο του τουρισμού, ιδιαίτερα στους εργαζόμενους. Επίσης, αρκετές πράσινες πιστοποιήσεις γίνονται σε ξενοδοχεία και φορείς. Αυτά τα παραδείγματα που ανέφερα είναι το πώς βάζεις όλες αυτές τις στρατηγικές από το υψηλό επίπεδο στο επίπεδο της καθημερινότητας και της πράξης. Μεσολαβεί όμως ένα τοπικό περιφερειακό σχέδιο δράσης, το οποίο πρέπει να το έχουμε, πρέπει να το καλλιεργήσουμε, πρέπει να το επεξεργαστούμε με τη συνδρομή της ακαδημαϊκής κοινότητας, της ερευνητικής κοινότητας, του δημόσιου τομέα, του ιδιωτικού τομέα και της κοινωνίας των πολιτών, προκειμένου να γίνει κατανοητό, γιατί στο τέλος αυτή θα το υλοποιήσει. Ευχαριστώ.
Ευχαριστώ και εγώ. Ο κύριος Αντωνίου.
Ευχαριστώ κύριε Τσούτσο. Καταρχήν, στο ερώτημα η απάντηση είναι ναι. Μπορεί ένας στρατηγικός σχεδιασμός προφανώς να επιτύχει αυτούς τους στόχους. Θα έλεγα ότι κατά τη γνώμη μου χρειάζεται όμως, δεν είναι αυτονόητος, έτσι. Χρειάζεται ικανότητα στο σχεδιασμό, χρειάζεται θέληση των συμμετεχόντων και χρειάζεται και δέσμευση στην υλοποίηση. Άρα από μόνος του ο σχεδιασμός δεν είναι αρκετός. Υπήρξαν σε πολλές περιοχές και σε πολλά παραδείγματα εξαιρετικοί σχεδιασμοί στο χαρτί που δεν υλοποιήθηκαν ποτέ ή που οι περιοχές αναπτύχθηκαν στην πορεία με πολύ διαφορετικές δεδομένα. Εδώ το πρόβλημα στο οποίο καλούμαστε, το ερώτημα στο οποίο καλούμαστε να απαντήσουμε είναι ένα δίλημμα μεταξύ της υπερεκμετάλλευσης μιας περιοχής, γιατί αν μιλούσαμε για μια ήπια μορφή τουρισμού, έστω και σε μια περιοχή με ευαίσθητο περιβάλλον, ενδεχομένως να μην υπήρχε ερωτηματικό στο αν αυτό είναι αποδεκτό ή όχι. Άρα, εκεί που το πρόβλημα μεγαλώνει, είναι εκεί που έχουμε μία τάση προς υπερεκμετάλλευση απέναντι στην ανάγκη για διαχρονικότητα. Και εκεί ο σχεδιασμός, η στρατηγική πρέπει να πετύχει ισορροπία. Κάποιες παραμέτροι οι οποίοι πιστεύω εγώ ότι είναι αναγκαίοι για να επιτευχθεί ένας τέτοιος στρατηγικός σχεδιασμός.
Are important for such a planning to be implemented. There is a need for a holistic approach because tourism, and in all development strategies, but tourism has its peculiarity. It's a sector which has characteristics that other sectors do not have. It has the masses, the intensity, together with the seasonality. It also has characteristics which have to do with the following element. Tourism has an impact on all the other sectors. So, for strategic planning that has to do with tourism, in practice, this planning concerns many other sectors, agriculture, public health, everything. Because this is what the studies show. The impact of tourism is very big. Another important characteristic when talking about tourism and sustainability is that here the concept is tourists come and they enjoy the beaches and the natural environment and they leave, and the possible negative impact remains in the area and to the local people. So, for example, now we pay for the plastic bag, but this doesn't mean anything because I pay something which never comes back never has an impact to the problem that has been created. The holistic approach has a need. Ms. Kivelo, allow me, I'm also architect and I have a master's degree in Pantheon in regional development. And I started when it was an institute, and in the 2 years I was there, it became a university department. So this shows how old I am. So, in infrastructure, and land planning, we have the concept of land use planning as follows. If we're going to uh, build a square in a neighborhood, if locals are involved, even if they disagree, they will listen because they want the square to create it as they want, and they will be more they will accept more that it will be useful. If you don't say anything to them, it means it's probable that the square will be left alone. We need everyone to be involved in the planning, all the potential stakeholders, the local people, the society, the businesses. In my introduction, I referred to the environmental NGOs. Maybe they are non-governmental, but they do have a say. So this planning should conclude to a result which will be accepted and can be exploited afterwards in the way it has been planned. The last parameter to this discussion, which I need to refer, we also need experts. All the issues we referred at the beginning, circular economy, for example. It is not self-evident that there is a competency that all these subjects are being treated. For each field, if we're talking about a coastal zone, we need experts. So expertise is a very important factor to ensure a positive outcome. So in closing, I'd just like to mention that what Ms. Kotoglou said, the critical issue in planning is balance. Balance of ambitions, aims and results. If one of the two sides manages to get ahead of the other one, and in this case, if it's the side that exploits the environment, if it's a side who wants no change, then we have a problem in both cases, because local societies have a right to enjoy the development that the region offers. And this planning, my last point, should also consider the whole system. It does not belong to Kissamos municipality. It belongs to a whole Crete. If it's a resource, if a natural beauty is something that attracts tourists, then it also attracts tourists to the whole island. And if it's destroyed, the whole island will lose it. Thank you. We have another two questions. Just a comment for Palos. It belongs to, economically, financially, belongs to the island, but as an ecosystem it's a global heritage. What happens in Palos does not only affect Crete and Greece, but the whole world. We need to protect all the ecosystems because they are parts of our responsibility towards the world. And here, I'd like to change the subject. In all the research that we conduct, when we go very close to the people on the island, they're looking to us surprised, but also with stress, because they feel the climate change and the change that needs to take place. They also understand the European policies, the Green Deal. However, if we go on a second level, usually there are societies with very small businesses, with even the experts that someone referred to this. These are offices and businesses which need to survive, but in reality they need to change and follow a different path. So we have a weakness, I would say, a deprival of the local authorities, especially on the small islands or the small regions, in order to be able to catch up with these aims which we'll need to achieve in order to protect the environment and limit the consequences of the climate change. I would like to have your comment. I would like to start with Ms. Kotoglu and then with Ms. Kivelu. Ms. Kotoglu, you're someone in the market. You have an image of what I've told you. How can we bridge this gap between the society of citizens, the small businesses, the medium-sized businesses, and the need for to catch up with the challenges? As Mr. Antoniou already said, we should create a balance. We should have a balance, and instead of having sides which are opposite each other, we have sides who operate with each other for the final result. However, we should see this result in front of us. You know, in administration, we say that the management, the change management, is much more difficult because it is not easy for the stakeholders to see the result like directly. We tried in terms of digitalization, in the context of digitalization, we automized our collective instruments by making them fully digitalized. It was not that someone can see the decisions and recommendations. It's not that someone... the most important thing is that we will stop to make photocopies. So the stakeholder on that time, they say, please don't tell me that I'm able to digitalize everything. With the first direct result, I will not photocopy. Okay, let's carry on. So we need, on the one hand, to find a logic based on which everyone will understand the common aim and objective. And this logic is not an easy thing. You see that someone goes and creates a very sustainable hut or house in an island and it's harmonized with the environment, and someone else is taking is asking for water, and he says that he's a nature lover, and he exploits all the natural resources of an island, and all this names a system. And, for example, they blame the mayor, for example, for this, for arbitrage. It is not easy to establish this balance. When this balance is achieved and we realize what is happening, I agree concerning Palos and with what Mr. Antoniou said, because if the region of Crete goes on exhibition on abroad and wants to show a card postal, they will show Palos, Brevely, and as a consequence, if a foreign visitor is asking for a snapshot of Crete, then you will include Palos or anything else. But a reserve of Crete is also Paliochora, Kissamos, Kelefka Ori, and everything else. And all this system creates we should find a way which starts from above and goes below, who show that future is sustainability and perseverance. What is sustainability? Sustainability is competence of a tree to preserve its production capability independently of what George will do about his crops. This is what the term sustainability that the tree is able to produce what it produces each year. When talking about Mykonos, we are not talking about sustainability. This is something which offends me as a man of Crete. This is how the visitor should understand. We need to understand what it means that someone has fun. What is an experience? Why traditionally Crete has a percentage of visitors more than 50-60%, and this changed during the pandemic. But this was a global issue because there was already an experience. So we need to understand that as we kill this experience, then we go back to a field that it's not in our favor to play. This field we need to play in is that of the sustainability of nature, of gastronomy and culture and hospitality. And as long as this is present, it will give to Crete a huge competitive advantage, and to all Greece. If this is over, then this competitive advantage will also be over, and then we will have to do with industry which make better than us. This is why we need to understand, to explain what was self-evident for Greece and Crete, and now it's not anymore. Thank you very much, Ms. Kivelou. As I understood, the question is, we have the big challenges on the one hand, the big policies, European policies and international policies, and on the other hand, we have the citizen society, this small scale you mentioned. I do not think that these are contradictory. Of course, we should create some mechanisms to bridge the gap between them. However, the one needs the other, for sure, and citizens, social groups, small businesses, and all these, the whole ecosystem has its role. And generally, we should understand that the London maritime, coastal and marine areas, now it is recognized that it is something that should be protected. And it's something that needs to be protected, but some people understand this that as an area to invest. We should understand this. This is something that citizens should understand, not like there are ways to do this. For example, apart from the ecosystem management the directive refers to, there's something else as well. The directive talks about the coexistence of activities, harmonic coexistence of activities. This is called as multi-use of the maritime areas, marine areas. This is something I have researched a lot, and I have researched how this can be implemented and be introduced in the local societies, and so the local societies are involved. And I will give you two examples. In Mediterranean especially, this coexistence is being made with tourism as the main point of interest. So we can have the coexistence of tourism, fisheries, environmental protection, or protection of nature. We could have activities to boost fisheries tourism, which is very developed in the Adriatic and very well-known topic and very beneficial. And there is a policy in our country, and we also have a memorandum of cooperation between the Ministry of Fisheries, the Ministry of Development, the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Tourism, I wanted to say. So, these subjects have been understood. So, fisheries tourism, but not only, but in protected maritime areas. So we have the protection of the nature, the ultimate protection, together with these small touristic part. This is very important. So we need to combat problems such as overfishing, if this exists in Greece. I have heard that overfishing in Greece is not important. This is only in very commercial fishing on abroad. Now it is not that big. And we have a group of the fishermen, which is very important. There are many families, and these people are marginalized. They do not have the way to speak up. They are not being represented. We have wrote a book in Norway, Blue Justice, this for the equality in fisheries. So fisheries, this is good for fisheries if it's combined with tourism. Tourism has an advantage because we have ecotourism and so on. And also the fishermen understand that they can also have another job, which could be keeping the maritime protected areas, to be the guards of this protection. And also they need to understand this. Also tourists need to understand that they need to protect the nature. So this multi-use, it's a new paradigm from passing from this exclusive use of aquaculture. I told to Mr. Damanakis, Minister of Environment, I told him that aquaculture does not talk about exclusive zones, but why this is imperative? So this sector needs exclusiveness. And especially in poros, like in very sensitive areas. We have heard, for example, about the reactions of the local society, of the mayor of Poros, for example, about the aquaculture. So, you have seen how we can create the future. And the EU, since 2010 until 2022, has invested a lot of money to this promotion of this multi-use. And this is a share of interests. How this will become a win-win situation and not a trade-off, because coastal and marine, land and marine planning is a trade-off. So trade-off, it means that I sacrifice something to do something else. No, it should be a win-win. this is a win-win scheme, and it is not this is a coordination of zones which is fragmented. All these can coexist. A second example, underwater culture, aquaculture, and the maritime and underwater heritage have the Bristera wreck, for example, diving tourism, we have seen that a lot of steps have been made. And even the Ministry of Culture understood that there should be a coexistence between these, all these with the diving tourism, accessible areas, together with the protection of the culture, because it's again in a protected area. So I believe that the future for this combination of the big challenges with the society of the citizens are these cooperative schemes. They are in the directive, it is multi-use, it's very promoted. We promote it in our workshop, we constantly do an estimation of potential of those multi-use. We ask a lot of experts and we do an estimation of the potential. We measure barriers, impacts, drivers, a method which is called damming. So for each of these,
Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ.
Thank you very much.
Να πω ότι ήδη έχουμε περάσει το χρόνο. Έχω ζητήσει, ίσως είδατε έκανα και ζητήσει να μας δώσουν ακόμα 10 λεπτά για να κλείσουμε. Άρα θα παρακαλούσα λοιπόν καταρχήν τον κύριο Μουντάκη σε ένα λεπτό, αν μπορεί να μας πει λίγα πράγματα για τα προβλήματα που έχουν οι τοπικές κοινωνίες, οι τοπικές μικρομεσαίες επιχειρήσεις να προχωρήσουν σε δράσεις για την κλιματική αλλαγή. Σε αυτό και μετά θα προχωρήσω στην τελευταία μου ερώτηση. Παρακαλώ κύριε Μουντάκη.
Ναι. Η κλιματική αλλαγή συνδέεται άρρηκτα και με το κομμάτι της ενεργειακής κρίσης.
Combined with the energy crisis, we see the impact of these recently. We experience these households and businesses, and I think this is a very good opportunity for that to be understood for the business owners, that specific actions should be taken towards this direction. And in this context, I think I need to stress now that the results of the energy crisis and the climate change and the energy crisis as a consequence hit the low-income levels of the society, and this is something that should worry us all. We should all move towards a direction of information giving and climate change. There should be a bigger activation of the carriers and to involve in this procedure the citizens and also involve other carriers who have a more direct access to this part of the financial economic situation and activity of each region. And based on that, I think that combining it with the issue of tourism and tourist development, we should stress on how the tourist flow how the coastal tourism can be combined with the development of tourism.
τόσο στις περιοχές όσο και στην τοπική οικονομία που σχετίζεται με την ενδοχώρα. Νομίζω ότι πρέπει να ενταθεί λίγο το κομμάτι του awareness του κόσμου.
We need to create awareness for the citizens, starting from above, from initiatives that have to do with the government, the local authorities, and then through chambers, associations and carriers of representation, we should transfer these to the last layers, to the last levels. So the information should be transferred to everyone, the consequences of climate change and how this impact has an impact on everyone, on all citizens, in order to be able, in a very short time, to gain time which was lost at the beginning, when these consequences started to be evident. Thank you. My last question is, we have crisis, COVID, we still have an issue, it will get worse in winter, we have crisis, energy crisis, which will not stop very soon, we have the economic crisis. So, I'm not sure how we are the experts for this, but how can local societies, how can they be protected and be more resilient in such crisis? So, to keep a balance, I'd like Mr. Alexakis, Ms. Hadjiani, and Mr. Antoniou. Let's start with Ms. Hadjiani. Ms. Hadjiani, please share with us some ideas of how, if there are some measures to face the future with less fear and more security. So, I think that for this issue, I think that already the previous speakers have said a lot, and if we gather them all, we have a lot of information about this. So, concerning the local systems, local societies, we need to clarify the level of local society. We're talking about the very small community in a coastal area. It can be a municipality, it can be a region. But we should see on what level of local society we're referring to. In any case, these societies, based on their level, to enhance integrated strategies, because the modern model of sustainable development includes the social sustainability and innovation, and mainly the integrated bottom-up approach. So, the sustainable development is based on the activation of the local societies, and with this, the bottom-up approach. So, citizens are the basic chain, the basic element, the traditional model of innovation in terms of implementing the strategies which are the pillar, the modern pillar of innovation when talking about a sustainable and smart development. So, on the level of local authorities, we could emphasize on coastal and island regions, and in subjects that, in issues that have to do with small density regions with small density populations. For example, tourism in Crete. If we also talk about alternative tourism forms, this is a coexistence between tourism forms which have to do with coastal areas, in our beaches, for example, but also in how we attract those tourists to the mainland with the alternative tourist forms. And here we have the balance of all this. So how can a region with, for example, an island which is in the heart of Mediterranean with all the advantages this entails, but with the specifications of a region, with the specifications that it combines populous regions, such, for example, the coastal areas, and also the general agricultural societies in the mainland. And here is what this is the emphasis we give to those areas. In parts of the European cohesion policy, the coastal, the island, the continental areas, and areas with small populations. So we need to the European cohesion policy emphasizes on this, expressed by the European Development Fund. And talking about European regions who experience such challenges, based on the activation of what we led local development, what I said before, development with the initiative of local communities. And I think that all the speakers expressed this, the activation on a local level, local initiatives of citizens, of groups of citizens, and how these can become one single voice in the policy making and strategies. This is important. So it can be a strong tool in order to help those regions to face the financial, social, and environmental needs through various actions and programs towards this direction. So, since we're talking about cooperative schemes and how all these social or these local societies are activated, and not only public carriers, not only research carriers alone, not only a group. We're talking now of an integrated and multi-level governance. We keep some words in English, but it's good that we mention them. The multi-phased governance contains the private initiative as an important part of it's a way, very useful way for the sustainable development. So since we're talking about this, and in closing, allow me to inform the audience about 3 programs that started last year, type of meeting here in Brussels, and concern the coastal and marine tourism. They are funded by the European Fund for Fisheries, and the second one is about cruising, and the third has to do with business, and new business models which can be developed for the development of sustainable growth through innovation. And the other one is the activation of the youth through schools and with school exertions, for example, school trips. This is a huge chapter about the sustainable tourism forms, which is important for the activation of children, which are the future citizens. These programs concern the Mediterranean. These are programs which include the implementation of the European Union policies with emphasis on the sustainable sea growth. And this is how I started today. Sea tourism is a basic pillar, the biggest employment sector in the whole world based when talking about economic activities. And also we have the possibility to include all these various groups, either it's researchers or citizens or private and public sector. And in closing, the Directorate General for Fisheries, and especially our unit, in the last month organized a series of participatory workshops where we invited 4 groups, and one of those workshops had the subject the coastal and marine tourism. Crete was there, participated, we're really happy about it, but in these workshops concerned all the regions of Europe. The aim was to implement new projects under the concept of sustainable coastal marine tourism. Subjects that were discussed is circular economy in tourism, digitalization, the utilization of data for research for decision making on political regional level, the alternative tourism forms such as alternative tourism, fisheries tourism and ecotourism, sustainable mobility in tourism, the seasonality, and last but not least, the enhancement of professional competencies and skills to those who work in tourism, and the enhancement of possibilities and of regional authorities concerning staff and the specialization of staff for sustainability. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me today.
Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ, κύριε Χατζηγιάννη. Ο κύριος Αλεξάκης.
Πόσο χρόνο έχω?
2-3 λεπτά, όχι παραπάνω.
Ωραία. Η απάντηση είναι ότι χρειάζονται περισσότερες συζητήσεις να οργανώνει η κύρια Ιστούτου για αυτά τα θέματα.
Με χαρά θα πάμε στην επόμενη.
Ναι, και θα πρότεινα να κάνετε και podcast που είναι της μοδός με ένα τίτλο πώς το trade-off μπορεί να γίνει win-win μεθοδολογία, multi-use μεθοδολογία. Αλλιώς στη γραμματικά, εκεί πραγματικά η κουβέντα είναι αξιόλογη και καλό θα ήταν να την παρακολουθούσαν και να επηρεάζονταν από αυτοί που λαμβάνουν αποφάσεις. Διότι μπορούμε να κάνουμε διάλογο, εμπλοκή της κοινωνίας, διαβούλευση και όλα αυτά, όμως στην Ελλάδα που τις αποφάσεις παίρνει σχεδόν μόνο το κοινωνικό κράτος, πρέπει να επηρεάσουμε αυτούς που παίρνουν τις αποφάσεις για να ακούσουν την τοπική αυτοδιοίκηση με τη μορφή της περιφέρειας και των δήμων. Το λέω αυτό έχοντας κατά νου ότι ο νέος πρόεδρος της Επιτροπής των Περιφερειών στη χθεσινή του εναρκτήρια ομιλία της Γενικής Συνέλευσης της Επιτροπής των Περιφερειών ζήτησε να ξαναδούμε τα έργα του Ταμείου Ανάκαμψης, ρωτώντας την τοπική αυτοδιοίκηση για την επιτυχία του, διότι αυτή θα τα υλοποιήσει. Όταν είναι αποκλειστικά θέμα κεντρικού σχεδιασμού, τότε δεν είμαστε σίγουροι για το επιτυχές αποτέλεσμα. Δεν είναι εγγυημένο το αποτέλεσμα. Ζήτησε λοιπόν από αυτούς που αποφασίζουν να ακούσουν την τοπική κοινωνία, τις τοπικές φωνές, δηλαδή να ακούσουν εμάς τους ίδιους πώς θα αντιμετωπίσουμε την ανάκαμψη από την οικονομική κρίση, την ανάκαμψη από την πανδημία, την ανάκαμψη από την ενεργειακή κρίση, από τις περιβαλλοντικές απειλές, όλα αυτά, όλες αυτές τις αγωνίες που θέσατε στην ερώτησή σας. Άρα πρέπει, συμπληρώνω τις προηγούμενες τοποθετήσεις για την bottom-up approach, ότι πρέπει να επηρεάσουμε όμως και αυτούς που λαμβάνουν αποφάσεις, ώστε να έχουμε τελικά θετικά αποτελέσματα. Ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Και εγώ ευχαριστώ, κύριε Αλεξάκη. Ο κύριος Αντωνίου, μια και εκπροσωπεί την Κύπρο και είναι μόνος εκπρόσωπος της Κύπρου στο πάνελ, να κάνει τελευταία τοποθέτηση πάνω στο θέμα της ανθεκτικότητας και των μέτρων που ενδεχομένως μια εμπειρία ή μια καλή πρακτική την οποία έχετε εφαρμόσει στην Κύπρο για το θέμα.
Κύριε Τσούσο, Έλλην και εγώ Κύπριος, έτσι, δηλαδή δεν επιθυμώ τον διαχωρισμό και διαφοροποίηση από τους δικούς φίλους και συνομιλητές. Επειδή το ερώτημα ήταν σε σχέση με το πώς μπορούν οι μικρές κοινότητες νησιωτικές και ούτω καθεξής να αντιμετωπίσουν τις κρίσεις, ξεκινάω από το γεγονός ότι η προσωπική άποψη είναι ότι οι κρίσεις θα πληθαίνουν στο μέλλον. Θα είναι πιο συχνές. Η συχνότητα τους δηλαδή δεν θα είναι αυτές που ζήσαμε στις προηγούμενες δεκαετίες. Και άρα θα πρέπει οι κοινότητες, ιδιαίτερα οι μικρές, που δεν έχουν το μέγεθος και τους αριθμούς για να έχουν συγκροτημένα συστήματα αντιμετώπισης των κρίσεων, και δεδομένου μάλιστα ότι σε πολύ μεγάλο βαθμό, αν πάρουμε την υγειονομική κρίση αλλά και τις οικονομικές, η κεντρική πολιτική και η υλοποίηση της αναλαμβάνει το κεντρικό κράτος, ή την καθορίζει το κεντρικό κράτος, αλλά τα περιθώρια στο τοπικό επίπεδο είναι πολύ πιο μικρά. Θα έλεγα ότι αυτό που χρειάζεται να χτίσουν οι κοινότητες είναι μηχανισμούς που να έχουν να κάνουν με την ευαισθητοποίηση, με την κοινωνική συνοχή, την αλληλεγγύη στο εσωτερικό τους, και σε ό,τι αφορά το ευρύτερο περιβάλλον, μηχανισμούς συνεργασίας, δικτύωσης, σε μεγαλύτερα σχήματα που να τους επιτρέπουν να μπορούν να αντιμετωπίσουν τις κρίσεις με πιο αποτελεσματικό τρόπο. Αυτοί οι μηχανισμοί θεωρώ, και κλείνουμε αυτό για να είμαι πολύ σύντομος, ότι μπορούν να αποτελούν και την βάση για την πιο εύκολη μετάβαση στην περίοδο της ανάκαμψης που θα ακολουθήσει. Άρα, αρχές δηλαδή, όπως είναι η συνοχή αλληλεγγύη, αρχές που είχαμε στις κοινότητες μας παλαιότερες δεκαετίες, συνήθως αυτές οι αρχές μεγαλώνουν σε περίοδους κρίσεων. Αυτές αν αξιοποιήσουμε μπορούμε να είμαστε πιο αποτελεσματικοί και στην αντιμετώπιση των κρίσεων.
Καταρχήν, πριν κλείσουμε, να σας ευχαριστήσω πάρα πολύ. Θυσιάσατε το σαββατιάτικο πρωινό που είναι ευαίσθητο πρωινό και χαλαρό, να είμαστε μαζί. Ελπίζω αυτοί που μας παρακολουθούν να γίνουν σοφότεροι. Εγώ έγινα. Να κράτησα μερικά σημεία, πολύ λίγα, που θεωρώ ότι έχουμε κάποια θέματα. Καταρχήν, έχουμε την τεχνογνωσία, έχουμε σχέδια, έχουμε τεχνολογίες, έχουμε εργαλεία οικονομικά. Τι δεν έχουμε? Δεν έχουμε αριθμούς. Προσπαθούμε να δημιουργήσουμε αριθμούς στα πανεπιστήμια, προσπαθούμε να δημιουργήσουμε αριθμούς, ώστε να μπορούμε να εκτιμήσουμε, έστω και με έναν έμεσο τρόπο, τα externalities ή όλα αυτά που είναι, ή κρίσιμα θέματα, ποια είναι η αξία της ζωής, ή ένα σπάνιο είδους ή οτιδήποτε. Αυτά δεν τα έχουμε, και όσο και να μοιάζουν λίγο κοινικά, τα χρειαζόμαστε με κάποιο τρόπο. Δεν έχουμε πολλά παραδείγματα συνεργασίας που χρειάζεται. Έχουμε λίγα παραδείγματα συνεργασίας, ενεργειακές κοινότητες ή συνεργατικά σχήματα τα οποία υπάρχουν τοπικά και θα δώσουν αυτή τη λύση. Επίσης, τι δεν έχουμε? Δεν έχουμε πολλά καλά παραδείγματα ορατά, όπως αναφέρθηκε από το ΕΒΕΓ, δηλαδή κάποιος ο οποίος δεν είναι ειδικός στο θέμα να δει μια λύση και να την υιοθετήσει αν χρειαζόμαστε περισσότερο demonstration. Αυτά εγώ θα ήθελα να συνοψίσω. Υπάρχουν τα προγράμματα, υπάρχουν χρηματοδοτικά σχήματα. Αυτά είναι τα αισιόδοξα κομμάτια της δικιάς μας συζήτησης. Ήθελα να ευχαριστήσω όλους σας, διότι η συζήτηση, παρότι ήταν χαλαρή και μερικές φορές διευρυμένη, κρατήθηκε σε ένα πάρα πολύ υψηλό επίπεδο. Ελπίζω όταν θα δείτε το βίντεο με ηρεμία να το δείτε. Εμείς από τη δικιά μας τη μεριά θα κρατήσουμε και ένα αντίγραφο αυτής της συζήτησης, και επίσης θα δούμε, σύμφωνα και με κάποιες προτάσεις που είχε κάνει και κατηδίαν και ο κύριος Αλεξάκης, πώς μπορούμε να οργανώσουμε κάτι μελλοντικό, ενδεχομένως εμπλέκοντας περισσότερο τον κόσμο της αγοράς. Σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ, καλή συνέχεια και καλή επιτυχία στις δραστηριότητές σας. Περιμένουμε να μαθαίνουμε νέα σας.
Εμείς ευχαριστούμε.
Με τα χαράς. Ναι, νομίζω εκεί πρέπει να κάνουμε.
Τους τεχνικούς να προσέχετε γιατί είναι καλά παιδιά εκεί και ρώτησαν και το άλλο που θέλετε.
Επίσης έχει δίκιο με παράληψή μου να ευχαριστήσω τους οργανωτές, τον κύριο Βεγεζάκη, αλλά και τους τεχνικούς, οι οποίοι μόχθησαν για να μπορέσουν να συνδυάσουν ένα περιεχόμενο αίθουσας με ένα περιεχόμενο διαδικτυακό. Ναι, πολύ σωστά. Σας ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Ευχαριστούμε. Καλή συνέχεια. Γεια σας. Γεια.
Πάντως η Κρήτη θα είναι πάντα resilient.
Αυτό να έρθετε να το πείτε στους κριτικούς ακριβώς.
Έτσι.
Και αυτοί ξέρετε τι θα σας απαντήσουν,
Τι.
Γέρας έχει μια ρακή.
Μια ρακή.